The Korean version of the proverb says that if you sow beans, beans will grow. If you sow beans, beans will grow. The little girl looked at the bean pod her mother was showing her. She knew that there was no law that said the world was always the same. Someone called the woman, and she was distracted from her daughter and walked away for a minute. Suddenly, something caught the little girl's attention, something that was lying on the table in front of her. She realized that there will definitely be exceptions to the rules that will make you believe that different things happen. In this pod of green peas, among all the green peas, there was one white ball. The little girl could compare herself to this white pea among the other green ones. I drew an analogy to my family and wondered who they were. The girl remembered that she was born with ram's horns, which would have been common. However, the problem was that both of her parents are real lions. While they had sharp fangs and cute ears, the little one herself wore horns on her head. All her adult life, the girl wondered why only she was born like this. Every time she was accompanied by her relatives, the girl caught herself thinking that she was different. The stream of her thoughts flowed further under the uniform clatter of the horses' hooves. Lucy the sheep and her little brother the lion cub were riding together in a carriage to school. However, the girl was not happy about this trip. She understood that she did not want to go anywhere. However, her younger brother was very enthusiastic and wished her a good day, after which he ran away. He flicked his tail, and Lucy remembered what she had been told her whole life. In her family, everyone married lions and gave birth only to lions, because only pedigree mattered. The girl did not understand why God played such a cruel joke only with her. There was diversity among animals in this world, and there was similar diversity among people. With ears or horns on their heads, even with claws, all people looked different. Appearance is determined by what is passed down from generation to generation, and this is what everyone calls pedigree. To maintain the purity of blood in society, people considered to be the elite, such as predators, unite with each other. However, Lucy was born with the ancestry of a sheep, which could not possibly happen to someone from the lion family. She attends a private school for predators, in which, naturally, there are no sheep like her. The girl hated the eyes of her peers, who saw her as some kind of mutant. Her family was exchanged for mutation, adultery. The girl could not even imagine how many words were said. She is truly lucky that her parents cherish and love each other, even though their marriage was of convenience. Therefore, there was no question of hiding the girl's birth and sending her to an orphanage. Her family took the girl into their arms and surrounded her with love. After this, the parents began to study each other's pedigrees, and in the process, the reason for her birth was found. All this happened because of the only one who was deliberately erased from the family tree. After some time, the parents found out that everything happened because of her great-grandmother Sophie. Throughout her childhood, the girl asked her parents why she had horns on her head. The parents looked at each other every time and told her the same story. In fact, the great-grandmother of one of them was a sheep, and although they may look a little different, Lucy is their daughter, so their love flows in her veins. Therefore, the girl knew that even though she was a sheep, the heart of a lion was beating inside her. Although she had already come to terms with what had happened, at the age of 4, everything changed. Mom became pregnant a second time, and after a while, her youngest son was born, who turned out to be a lion. Then Lucy realized that some part of her was definitely a lion. However, to her great regret, she did not look like a lion at all. The girl felt like a stranger in her own home. Quite a lot of time has passed since then. The estate and family tree of Lviv flourished. However, every day Lucy felt like a stranger in this house. Throughout the meal, the only thing she had on the table was salad, not meat. On top of that, as soon as people saw that her last name was Leperdier, they immediately tried to get closer to her. The girl understood that no one was to blame for her appearance. However, there was not a single soul in this entire place who could understand how lonely she was. That is why dear Lucy was interested in whether there was anything similar elsewhere, for example, outside the school. The girl did not know how it was possible to fill her loneliness, and who could fill it. She only hoped that someday she would be able to find the answer to these questions. In the meantime, she continued to pretend that she was living an ordinary life and went to school like all the other children. During one of the lessons, Lucy remembered that a social reception was to take place today. The girl was so lost in her thoughts that she completely forgot about him until that moment. Immediately after this, her look became sad because Lucy did not want to go there at all. A community of blood, called a pride or a circle, meet under the auspices of one common goal. Although it is called an exchange field to find out the ancestry of everyone individually, but this is just an excuse. In fact, at such gatherings they always discussed her origins as a sheep in the Leo family. That is why Lucy believed that a place where there are no herbivores cannot be considered equal. The real purpose of such events could be both the establishment of political connections and the conclusion of marriage alliances. In some cases, a young man from a not very noble family married a girl of good pedigree and entered into good circles. But there are also cases when representatives of families with similar status, but with different pedigrees, marry. However, Lucy understood that it would be really difficult for her to find her soulmate. She was afraid that the child she would give birth to would also turn out to be a sheep. The girl sincerely did not want the child to be tormented by the same doubts as she herself was now. Usually at such events, she laughed or talked for a few minutes, and then went to fold origami in a quiet place. Just at that moment, the girl was doing origami, thinking how many dogs she should fold today. However, suddenly something distracted her from this exciting activity. The door to her quiet and calm balcony opened, so the girl decided to look at the newcomer. She raised her head and saw in front of her a beautiful young man whom she had not seen before. The first thing she noticed was his tall, pointed ears. Behind him, the guy was actively waving his wide and soft silver tail. After looking at the man's distinctive features, Lucy turned her gaze to his face. The guy looked at her piercingly with his big gray eyes. He smiled friendly and tilted his head a little to the side in surprise. The young man greeted our heroine, and everything in him said that he was glad to meet her. It was quite cool on the balcony, so no one else came here. The guy was beaming with joy and was about to introduce himself to his interlocutor. But Lucy, who mistook the guy for a dog, said that he had the wrong door. She frantically clutched her origami in her hand and asked the guy to leave the balcony. She came here first, so she asked the stranger to leave and close the door behind him. The young man immediately agreed and turned to the front door. He came closer to it and carefully and tightly closed it on the handle. However, after that, he immediately turned and headed back to Lucy. The young man approached the girl and stopped right in front of her with a smile on his face. He was literally glowing with joy and had a huge smile on his face. But what gave him away most of all was his tail, which darted from side to side. Lucy didn't know how to react to the fact that the guy closed the doors, but didn't come out. She was already preparing for the next portion of attacks and ridicule of herself. But the young man just stood opposite her, blushed a little and smiled. They stood there for a while in silence, just looking at each other. At some point, it even seemed to Lucy that the guy's eyes were shining bright silver. The girl attributed everything to the fact that they simply reflected the bright moonlight. She could not bear such tension for a long time and was the first to turn away from him. There was still an awkward silence between them, so the guy decided to break it first. He cleared his throat a little and asked why the girl was standing here alone. Such a question confused Lucy. She almost crumpled her origami. And the guy, meanwhile, assumed that the girl was simply lost. The heroine began to worry that now he would want to look at her family again. However, the guy stopped questioning her and instead decided to introduce himself. He put one hand behind his back, put the other on his chest, and said that his name was Roman. The guy didn't give his last name, so the girl couldn't guess what family he was from. She later recalled that they met without any fancy introductions and without mention of their families. At that moment, it was Lucy's turn to introduce herself, but she hesitated. The girl did not believe that the guy really did not know about her. After all, other people who see her for the first time always pay attention to the horns. They either begin to look at her amazingly, or they feel sorry for the girl. Besides, Lucy herself had never seen this guy before this moment. However, her new acquaintance Roman looked friendly and calmly waited for an answer. After thinking a little more, Lucy decided to introduce herself to him without mentioning her last name. In her quiet and innocent voice, the girl said that her name was Lucy. Immediately after that, she said goodbye to the young man and turned around, intending to leave. However, she was surprised that the guy did not leave the balcony, but still continued to stand in place. Lucy tried not to pay attention to him, but she herself did not understand what was happening. The girl continued to pretend that she did not notice the guy and folded origami. She was amazed that Roman did not take hints and continued to cause inconvenience to the other person, and he did not interfere in any way with her activities, simply silently watching from the sidelines. After some time, the young man came closer to the girl and called her by name. Lucy didn't expect this, so she shuddered and turned to look at him. Roman said that her classes seemed fun to him and asked her to give him one piece of paper. The sheep did not at all expect such a development of events, so she took a closer look at her new acquaintance. Now the girl noticed that he emanated a floral aroma and the smell of almonds. She believed that without paper, he would continue to talk to her, so she decided to grant his request. Lucy handed her new friend a piece of paper, and she continued to fold the origami. First, she made a cute penguin from a small yellow leaf. Then she was inspired by the image of her friend and assembled a wolf and a dog. After which she added a swan, an elephant, and another small breed of dog. All this took the girl quite a long time, so she was surprised by Roman's persistence. At a party where everyone is busy making connections, this guy was hanging around with her. The young man fiddled with the paper in his hands so hard that it began to tear. Lucy thought that this guy was taking out his anger on her, so she asked him to stop. However, Roman explained that he simply did not know how to fold the paper correctly, so he accidentally tore it. The girl got angry at him because he ruined her materials just like that. But the young man looked scared and said that he just wanted to be friends with her, not to hurt her. Lucy went through this more than once when they tried to get closer to her for the sake of her family. She believed that Roman came to her balcony on someone's tip. However, the young man did not understand at all what her family had to do with their conversation. He didn't think that if he told someone he didn't like that he wanted to be friends with him, he would be able to do it. He then looked back at the room behind them and pointed to one of the guys as an example. It turned out to be a narcissistic leopard who could only talk about himself. Such an ardent speech and example amused Lucy. The girl even laughed. She found her new friend Roman funny and offered to teach him how to fold origami. And the young man was only happy about this, smiling sweetly in response. That day was the first time Lucy had fun with a person who had a different bloodline. She asked Roman if he was a dog, because it seemed so to her at first glance. Later, Lucy didn't understand that. Although their situation was similar, she didn't know why the guy answered yes and lied about something like that. That evening, although the girl did not eat anything, she was not bothered by the feeling of hunger. Already in bed, Lucy recalled that she demanded the guy to leave as soon as she saw him. She did not understand why she behaved this way and was so unfriendly. Roman just wanted to make friends with her and was quite smiling and nice. The girl realized that this was the first time she had been with someone at a party. That evening was the first time she thought that going to a social gathering was a good idea. Lucy reasoned that Roman wanted to make friends with her, but this could not bring him any benefit. It's not for nothing that they always said about her that all that glitters is not gold. The girl was clearly happy and embarrassed at the same time by such interest on the part of the young man. They only talked a little, but Lucy was interested in whether Roman liked their conversation. She was sure that her words were quite offensive, but the guy approached her as if nothing had happened. Moreover, throughout the entire evening, Roman never once paid attention to her horns. That's why Lucy thought it would be great if they could meet again. The girl fell asleep thinking about whether she could meet Roman again and talk to him. Some more time passed. Another social reception was about to take place in society. This time, Lucy prepared for it thoroughly, wearing her best jewelry. This was the first time she'd been so excited about an upcoming event. The girl looked at herself in the mirror and thought how good her outfit and jewelry looked together. However, her little brother noticed that in any outfit, his sister would always be the most beautiful. He was still very young, but he immediately understood that the girl wanted to meet someone in the evening. Lucy replied that she did not do it to show off in front of anyone. However, after her brother's words, she realized that she was too bothered with the preparations for the reception. The girl told herself that she really wasn't going to the party to see someone. However, at the reception itself, Lucy kept looking around, as if looking for someone. The girl did not admit it to herself, but she was looking everywhere for familiar silver hair. Unfortunately, she never managed to find them throughout the evening. Lucy was already a little upset, so she headed to her favorite balcony. Imagine her surprise when it was there that she met her friend Roman. It seemed as if the young man was also looking for her and was very glad to meet her. He noticed a familiar girl from afar and immediately hurried to her. Together, they walked out onto the quiet balcony and closed the door tightly behind them. Roman admitted that he was worried that the girl might not come, but he really wanted to see her. Lucy didn't understand his feelings and wondered what they could talk about. To begin with, the young lady invited her friend to fold origami again, like last time. Roman smiled happily and gladly agreed to this proposal. The young man immediately wagged his bushy tail from side to side in joy. Lucy looked at it and was glad that he had a tail that showed all his emotions. After that, the guys had a wonderful conversation in which they discussed everything under the sun. The guy studied at the Juventia school, where you could only go if you belonged to a really good family. Therefore, the girl was surprised that, coming from a noble family, she had never met Roman in society before. Lucy had heard that many of the new classes that were newly formed after the fall of the aristocracy had dog bloodlines. Such families were usually not invited to social functions and were secretly expelled. Perhaps this was the reason. After this thought, the girl began to worry that Roman would continue to play only with her. However, she continued to teach her new friend how to fold origami. Lucy believed that at his first social gathering, a guy should make as many connections as possible and not fold papers. So the girl asked Roman why he didn't spend time with his family, to which the guy replied that his father was not here and his mother had already died. Lucy was surprised by this turn of events, so she immediately jumped up and began to apologize for her careless words. For some reason, she thought that all the parents in the world were alive and well. Typically, such events are attended by their parents, so Lucy apologized for her carelessness. In response to this, the guy just smiled pitifully and looked the girl straight in the eyes. He carefully removed her hand from his shoulder and said that he came here with his older brothers. He was the third son in the family and the youngest, so Lucy was interested to know about his relationship with his brothers. Roman smiled and said that he barks all the time with his elders. Lucy figured it was because he came from a bloodline of dogs. However, she remembered the guy's smile at these words and realized that they actually had a good relationship in the family. After that, she herself spoke about having a younger brother, who, instead of a reception, went to some kind of exhibition. The girl herself also didn't really want to go to the reception, but she didn't want to upset her parents. It was quite difficult for her to admit this, so Lucy waited for her friend's reaction to these words. However, Roman said he was relieved after this confession. He didn't care about the reason for the girl's presence at the reception, but he was glad that he could meet her here. Lucy looked at Roman's tail and realized that the guy was really glad to meet him. They chatted pleasantly for some time about their brothers and relationships with them. Roman admitted that his family members constantly argue with each other when they are bored. To support her friend a little, Lucy decided to give his older brothers her crafts. After that, she ran out of paper, and the girl wanted to try to do what she had recently read about in a book. However, this might be a little embarrassing for her new friend, so the girl asked him for permission. She admitted that the book said that if you pat a dog on the head, all the accumulated stress will disappear. Roman was stunned by such an unexpected proposal, and Lucy was embarrassed by his reaction. However, a moment later, Roman joyfully invited the girl to pat him on the head. He even leaned slightly towards her and closed his silver eyes. The guy put his head up, and Lucy gently and carefully ran her hand through his hair. The girl pulled her hand back almost immediately because she felt embarrassed. However, Roman said that he really liked it and asked to pet him more. Lucy relaxed a little and fulfilled her new acquaintance's request with joy. The reception was coming to an end, and Roman asked if he and Lucy could see each other again. The girl could not give him a definite answer, so the guy looked upset. However, none of them knew when the next social reception would take place, because this kind of event is not held on a strictly set date. These words seemed to upset our Wolf Cub hero even more. However, he perked up when Lucy promised to come to the next appointment. She smiled at her new friend and suggested they spend time together again. At this point, the social reception ended and everyone began to go home. Lucy was riding in a carriage and reasoning that she should have exchanged contact information with a friend. However, she didn't know if they were already such close friends that they could meet somewhere else. The girl believed that for now it would be better if Roman remained just a friend, whom she saw only at receptions. Sometimes she reasoned alone, and it seemed that Lucy did not understand people at all. How far you shouldn't go in some things, and how openly you should talk about others. So she decided to ask her parents for advice on how she could best deal with this situation. However, she decided not to give their name because the parents hardly knew Roman's family. Lucy never had friends, so she was a little confused. She didn't understand what kind of relationship she had with Roman because they only met twice and didn't know each other's last names. The guy seemed even more special to her because he didn't worry about such things at all. It was clear from him that he was simply enjoying his time spent with the girl. However, Lucy and Roman were destined to meet much earlier than they expected. By a strange coincidence, there were quite a lot of social events that month. It wasn't even the end of the year yet, but charity receptions were held every week. Because of these words, the guy thought that the girl was not happy about their frequent meetings. However, Lucy said that he had it all wrong and that she was actually glad to see him. There were rumors that the Baskerville family was behind the organization of all these social events. Their coat of arms was a white-crowned wolf, and the family was known for quickly getting back on its feet and becoming rich after the war. The girl discussed these rumors with her new friend and believed that the family was up to something. However, Roman perceived it more as charity and viewed it positively. She didn't care. She was glad that she could meet her friend at such receptions. After several such meetings, a certain agreement naturally arose between the guys. Upon entering the banquet hall, they silently greeted each other with their eyes. Then both of them, avoiding prying eyes, looked for a secluded and quiet place. Thus, they had already met about 10 times recently. And now the guys stood next to each other on a quiet and calm balcony, away from prying eyes. However, Lucy felt that the balcony was too open a meeting place, so she invited her friend to go inside, but not to the banquet hall. The girl reached out to Roman's ear and invited him to go to a place where there was no one at all. This intrigued the young man very much, and he happily agreed. The guys slipped unnoticed through the banquet hall and were now walking along the corridors of the palace. They reached one of the rooms and entered it, closing the massive doors behind them. The guys now didn't worry that someone might see them and sat calmly on the bed. They were already 15 years old, but until the end of the year, they just sat on the bed and folded origami. Roman always took away folded paper figures with him, as if they were some kind of valuable treasure. Lucy not only folded origami, but also often brought food with her. And now in front of Roman, there was a huge plate with various meats and vegetables. He calmly ate piece by piece, but suddenly he felt something strange. The guy realized that there was lamb on the plate, which he ate right in front of Lucy. However, the girl calmed him down, saying that she was not a real sheep, and besides, he needed to eat meat. Therefore, Lucy asked not to worry about her and added that she was already used to it because she was very different from her family. The girl said that their food is also different, and at the receptions, all the participants are predators. She's used to the fact that most people won't make sacrifices for her. The girl's words upset the young man so much that he stopped her speech. The young man noticed that Lucy did not have to get used to such behavior, but the young lady said that for her, asking her family to accommodate her eating habits is another form of violence. She wanted so badly to have a different bloodline that as a child, she believed that she was an adopted child. However, her loving family tried with all their might to convince the girl that being different is not bad. At that time, she felt very bad and lonely, although her parents tried to surround the girl with their love and care. She believed that if the family ended up on a desert island, she would be the first to be eaten. Roman listened to this story in silence, and now did not know how to respond to all this. Lucy realized that she had started a too serious conversation and asked her friend for forgiveness. However, Roman surprised her and suggested that she just step over it all with a smile. Unexpectedly, the young man began to eat cooked vegetables instead of his favorite meat. He calmly popped the broccoli into his mouth, chewed it, and said that it tasted quite tolerable. He agreed with the majority, but added that he could eat like this for the rest of his life. Roman slowly stood up from his chair and walked straight towards his young friend. The young man admitted that he can eat greens, fruits, and vegetables. Therefore, even if they suddenly find themselves on a desert island, they will be able to get along perfectly together as they do now. Lucy was very grateful to her friend for such words and suggested leaving already because the party would soon end. Roman was sitting on the bed opposite his girlfriend and was upset about this because he wanted to stay with her a little more. However, the girl noticed that the loud music had recently stopped playing. The guys were so carried away by each other that they did not hear the doors to their room open. A tall, stately lioness in a stunning dress entered them, looking for Lucy. The woman found her daughter and an unknown young man sitting together on the bed. A luxurious carriage, driven by coachmen, drove slowly through the evening city. Lucy sat inside it and thoughtfully looked out the window at the houses at night. Opposite the girl sat her parents, who also remained silent. Lucy didn't like this oppressive atmosphere between them, but the girl understood that it was all her fault. She remembered how just recently her mother found her alone with a guy in the room. The woman was very surprised to see her little daughter with a stranger. The girl hastened to justify herself and said that she was simply folding origami with her friend. However, she immediately rushed to kick Roman out under the pretext of worries about his older brothers. However, even this short acquaintance was enough for her mother to notice the peculiarity of her daughter's friend. The woman, unlike Lucy, immediately guessed that the young man was a wolf from the Baskerville family. The parents asked the girl if her friend was the one she mentioned earlier. Lucy hoped that her mother would not think badly of Roman because of this situation. For the first time in 15 years, she has a friend who is also very sensitive and attentive. As soon as the girl remembered her friend, she immediately blushed all over. The young lady herself did not understand why she suddenly had such a reaction to her friend. The parents did not argue much, but they noticed that from the outside, being alone in the room did not look very good. In addition, the mother had special complaints about who this child was. But Lucy interrupted her and said that she didn't care about the guy's family because she was dating him, not his parents. She described her friend as kind and sensitive, who approached her first and never once focused on her appearance. The parents heard this explanation from their daughter and looked at each other. They said that they understood the girl because friends really don't care what families they belong to. However, the parents added that, unfortunately, this only applies to friends. Lucy was lying on her bed and looking at the origami that she and Roman had made. She looked at the paper dog and realized that she knew almost nothing about Roman. She was interested in what his favorite food was, what he was interested in, what he dreamed about. The girl realized that she should have asked him a little more questions. She was worried that someone wouldn't have much fun hanging out with her. She only knew his name, that the guy did not have a very good relationship with his father, his mother died, and he had 2 older brothers. Lucy thought she was being too selfish because all she did was fold origami with him. At the next meeting, she promised herself to ask the guy what he likes and where he lives. She also wanted to apologize to him because Roman wanted to tell her something, but the girl did not listen to him. However, at the next reception, Lucy looked everywhere for her friend, but could not find him anywhere. At one point, she came across a guy who looked very similar to Roman, but she misidentified herself. The girl walked around the entire hall and did not understand where her friend had disappeared so suddenly. She looked around, hoping to see his silver hair among the crowd. Lucy was worried that the guy would never show up, and she didn't even know where he lived. At some point, the girl completely despaired of finding her friend and became sad. Suddenly, a stranger approached her from behind and put his hand on the girl's shoulder. Lucy was scared at first, but the man knew her name, which calmed her down a little. The girl turned around and looked at the stranger, who approached her and called out to her. The man introduced himself as Roman's older brother and said that he had told a lot about her. Lucy was amazed at how huge her friend's older brother was. The young man introduced himself and said his name was Harold Baskerville. It was at this moment that our heroine first heard the name of her friend and was very surprised. She knew that her family was on bad terms with the Baskervilles, and her parents were tormented by fighting them. From a political point of view, their families are ardent opponents of each other. Their coat of arms is a crowned white wolf, which means Roman was not a dog, but a wolf. This realization gave the girl goosebumps all over her body. She remembered her friend's ears and realized that they really belonged to a wolf. The girl didn't understand how she could make such a mistake, and she also said all sorts of things. She did not insult the Baskerville family, but spoke somewhat strangely about them. However, Lucy remembered that Roman definitely called himself a dog. She recalled the sweet moment when her friend was eating vegetables and could not believe the deception. Now the girl understood why her parents reacted so strangely to him that time. Mentally, she was very angry with herself for falling for this wolf's deception. The girl trusted her friend, but in the end, she was deceived. The point was not that the guy did not tell her his last name, but precisely that he misled her. Now Lucy couldn't understand how she could continue to communicate with Roman without trust. The girl even told him something that she had never told anyone before. The sheep's train of thoughts was suddenly interrupted by the voice of the elder Baskerville brother. He said that Roman managed to get measles, and asked the girl if she had it. It was very strange because their family always takes every precaution. Lucy was worried about her friend's health, but her brother assured him that he was already recovering. He suggested that the girl visit her friend if she already had immunity to this disease. Lucy was amazed because she never went to visit friends, but received such an invitation. The girl stood and looked at Harold Baskerville, who extended his hand to her. The young man once again noted that he was inviting her to visit his brother because he missed his friend very much. Lucy definitely wanted to see Roman, so she headed straight to her parents. There, Harold asked permission from the girl's parents to visit his younger brother. He promised that he would take responsibility for this event. Lucy's parents were a little confused about who the Baskervilles were. Their daughter also insisted on meeting her friend, who missed her. Even if the relationship between their families is not very good, the girl must go to see him. She said that she wanted to be as caring to her friend as he was to her. Lucy's father looked at his daughter with a smile and affectionately stroked her head. He allowed his daughter to visit a friend, but asked not to stay late. Thus, the girl ended up in the same carriage with Harold Baskerville. Lucy already knew that the father of their wolf family had lost his wife. After this, the grief-stricken owner of the house lives in solitude for 10 years. His eldest son runs the business, and his middle son Harold is in charge of the household. She also heard that the youngest son had not yet been introduced to secular society. That is why the girl did not know Roman and saw him for the first time at that reception. She didn't mean to offend anyone, but the guy really is the spitting image of a dog. Lucy didn't understand at all why the guy deceived her, and even with such an innocent face. Perhaps he recognized her immediately and did not want her to worry about their families. Her train of thoughts was interrupted by Harold, who announced the end of the trip. Only now did Lucy realize that she had received an invitation to visit the residence of the Baskerville family, but had arrived empty-handed. She apologized for such behavior, but the older brother told the girl not to worry about it at all. Instead, he smiled and suggested that she give them a slightly different gift. He asks him to tell Roman what the girl told her parents, because he will really like it. Afterwards, Lucy wondered how Roman introduced her to his brothers. Behind these thoughts, the girl did not notice how they drove up to the main entrance and stopped. The middle son of the Baskervilles was the first to get out of the carriage and offered his hand to the girl. He led her around their residence, where their portraits were hung everywhere on the walls. Lucy looked around carefully and tried to notice as many little things as possible. Suddenly, Harold invited the girl to enter secretly and give his brother a surprise gift. Lucy thought that such jokes were an indicator that the brothers were very close. The young man was very pleased with his idea and hummed the melody with a smile on his face. Lucy looked at Harold and realized that the guy was very attached to his brother. They headed straight to the bedroom of the youngest son of the Baskerville family. Harold said that he had prepared a small gift for his brother and asked permission to enter. He whispered in Lucy's ear to come in first, and he himself would return in a couple of minutes with dessert. The young guy pushed the girl forward, and he turned around and went in the opposite direction. Lucy hesitated for a moment and then carefully opened the large wooden door into the room. Before the girl had time to say anything, a pillow immediately flew at her. She crashed right into the poor sheep's face, forcing her to freeze in one place. Roman immediately recognized his friend and immediately rushed to apologize to Lucy. He jumped out of bed and began to examine the girl from all sides for injuries. The young sheep fell to her knees and grabbed her head with her hands. Roman tried to approach her and take a closer look, but the girl recoiled from him. Then the guy also got down on his knees and began to apologize to his girlfriend. He didn't understand at all how the girl ended up here, and he was worried that he had hurt her. However, the next moment, something happened that the guy could not foresee. Lucy grabbed that very pillow and began hitting her friend with it in a rage. She beat him with a pillow and scolded him for calling himself a dog and deceiving her. The girl literally sat on top of her friend and continued to scold him for cheating. Roman continued to apologize and say that he had good reasons for this, but the sheep could not forgive the fact that the guy deceived her for 6 months. She trusted him very much, so she was especially angry about this. It was at that moment that the door to the room swung open and 2 young wolves appeared on the threshold. At this moment, only Lucy and Roman were distracted and paid attention to those who entered. One of them was Harold with dessert in his hands, and the second was unknown to the girl. Out of surprise, Lucy froze with the pillow over her head. She immediately realized that the eldest son, Alexander Baskerville, was standing in front of her. The girl only hoped that her action would not provoke a fight between the 2 families. It was immediately obvious that the middle son, Harold, was enjoying this incident. He carefully placed the plate here on the table and walked closer to the girl. Instead of cursing, he began to teach her how best to use a pillow in a fight. Roman immediately guessed that this meeting was the work of his older brother. And Harold left the desserts, wished the guys bon appetit and good luck, and pushed his older brother out the door. The guys left the room and then closed it behind them, leaving their friends alone. Roman asked his girlfriend to stop beating him because he was still sick. Only these words could help him reach the girl's consciousness. After that, she threw the pillow aside and addressed her friend by name. However, Lucy then noticed that calling him by his first name was wrong. She should call him by his last name. The girl asked the younger Baskerville why he deceived her at the first meeting and did so for the next 6 months. Lucy looked directly at her friend and asked him why Baskerville deceived her. Roman covered his face with his hands in shame and asked the girl to continue calling him by name. However, he did not answer the question itself, but only began to howl sadly. Lucy stood looking down at her friend with her arms crossed at her waist. She had already heard these howls before, but only now she realized that it was a wolf howl. Now the girl is completely convinced that in front of her is a real Baskerville child. Lucy got tired of waiting for an answer just like that, and the girl sat down at the table with desserts and tea. She was brought here as a friend of Roman, and she began to beat him and disgraced herself in front of his brothers. As a member of the Leperdier family, she behaved very rudely. The girl believed that the one who should be crying now was her, but not Roman. She decided to stop it and asked her friend to come to her and talk normally. Roman, with his ears drooping, looked as if he didn't want to be in this room at all. However, the guy collected his thoughts and approached the table where Lucy was sitting. He sat down opposite the girl and asked if she hated him now for everything that had happened. The sheep tried to defuse the situation and calm down her friend, so she joked that they don't hate ugly people. Hearing what Lucy called him, the hero again burst into tears from resentment and shame. It was no longer a mystery to the girl how to react to this, and simply sat silently at the table and drank tea. She couldn't understand whether Roman was crying like a wolf or like a dog. The girl went to her friend and began to reassure him that he was not ugly. It was just an illness and it would pass. She asked the guy not to hide his face when he spoke to her. But Roman believed that his girlfriend hated wolves and therefore was angry with him. Seeing all this, Lucy directly asked her friend if he knew the reason for her anger. All this time, the guy sincerely believed that the girl was angry because he was a wolf. This answer of yours made the heroine furious because she was angry because of his lies, not her family. She absolutely did not understand why the guy needed to hide his identity and surname. After all, she was as sincere as possible with him and shared all her experiences. This gave her the impression that he wanted to mock her. Hearing this assumption, Roman even stopped crying for a moment and raised his head up. Lucy said that the hero became close to her because of a bet, or because of his unusual appearance, or because of sympathy, or because of something else. Roman denied all options, so the girl no longer knew what to think. She looked straight into her friend's eyes and asked him to tell him the real reason for his deception. Roman realized that he couldn't wait any longer, and he had to honestly admit everything. He was worried and began by saying that the relationship between the Baskerville and Leperdier families was not very good. He then began to stutter very badly, but Lucy patiently waited for his further response. Roman collected his thoughts and added that he just wanted to look good in her eyes. After all, the relationship between a wolf and a sheep is also usually not very good. At that moment, Lucy understood everything and she felt very funny, but the girl tried not to laugh. She didn't succeed, and the sheep burst into ringing laughter, which surprised the wolf cub. She found it funny that the guy thought that if he were a dog, they would get along. The girl added that no matter who her friend was, she would be satisfied with any option. And Roman admitted that he chose the dog because they are usually more friendly with sheep. He himself did not fully understand why he did this, so he asked his friend for forgiveness. He was ashamed, and the guy asked them both to pretend that all this did not happen. Lucy wanted to pat the wolf on the head like last time and calm him down, but he asked her not to do this. He had a hot forehead, and the leaf thought that it was a fever, and the illness had not yet passed. It seemed to Roman that this was all just a dream, and there was no way the girl could end up in his room. Now it was the same sweet Roman that our little sheep knew. She smiled cheerfully and asked the soul when he would be fully recovered. The wolf cub replied that he was practically healthy and would soon be able to go out into society. Lucy thought her friend was very sweet. She was glad that she could see him. After that, she admitted that Harold brought her as a gift to his brother for the new year. Roman thought that his brother forced the girl to do this and began to scold him. Thanks to these words, Lucy realized that the brothers were actually very close. Roman apologized for the behavior of the middle Baskerville son, but Lucy even enjoyed the adventure. She also learned that Roman told his brothers a lot about her. The girl asked her friend how it happened that the guy got measles, because children usually get measles. After these words, the wolf cub was very surprised, because in fact he did not have measles. Lucy realized that something was wrong, and Harold said something strange to Roman. The girl got up from her chair and asked the wolf if they were really friends. She had a lot of questions for him, no matter his diet, time, or background. To begin with, she was interested in whether the guy really liked collecting origami. Roman admitted that he is interested in active sports and ball games. The girl wanted to get to know her friend better, so she pestered him with questions. In response, the wolf asked if Lucy had any other friends besides himself, for example, at school. But the sheep admitted that Roman is her best friend, and there are simply no others. Hearing this, the guy was embarrassed and said that he also considered Lucy his best friend. They chatted for a long time, and the sheep asked Roman to give her his contact information for communication. Then their conversation was suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door, forcing the guys to be distracted from each other. They wondered who was knocking, and both of them immediately jumped up from their seats. The door opened, and the eldest son of the Baskerville family, Alexander, entered. He had a scary look on his face when the guy asked to talk to Lucy alone for a few minutes. Alexander was the oldest and most serious among all the brothers. However, even he treated Lucy well and smiled friendly at her. The girl was surprised that he put things aside and came to personally thank her for her visit. He also said that the girl's parents had already sent a carriage for her, and it was time to get ready to go home. Alexander then turned to his younger brother and said that it was time for them to say goodbye. Roman was clearly upset that it was time for the girl to go home. He decided to spend as much time as possible with her and volunteered to accompany her to the carriage. On the way, he leaned over to Lucy and said that his brother already had a girlfriend, to which the sheep replied that she had already heard about this from her parents. She may not have been very interested in this, but in general terms, she knew the history of the Baskervilles. Almost everyone knows that Alexander is dating a girl not from a noble family. In addition, the Baskervilles are known for attending many parties and not having arranged marriages. As a result, a lot of strange rumors also appeared in society. The girl looked at her friend Roman and thought that he was really very cute. Our little sheep really liked this young wolf. During their friendly conversations, the guys did not notice how they had already reached the carriage of the Leperdier family. Roman opened the door and helped his friend climb the steps inside. Then he handed the girl the toy that he had originally intended to give her. It was a cute lamb that a guy bought at the market square because it looked like his girlfriend. The guys said goodbye, and Roman promised to contact Lucy himself soon. The door slammed. The wolf cub moved away and began waving his hand to his friend. The carriage started moving, and the guy stood there until 3 minutes later, until she disappeared around the bend. Lucy reasoned that only wolves are always born in the Baskerville family, even without an arranged marriage. Only boys are born, and there have never been any illegitimate children. It seemed to Lucy that the brothers looked alike, like nesting dolls of different sizes. She was only upset that she came to visit empty-handed and left with a gift. Lucy stroked the toy, and it reminded her of Roman's soft hair. She really enjoyed patting the guy on the head, even though he wasn't a dog. Roman fully recovered after the New Year holidays. Next time they agreed to meet in his name and spend time together. The girl immediately noticed that her friend's questions had grown a little over time. However, she said with a smile that she liked his new hairstyle even better. Roman was very pleased to hear such praise from his friend. Before this, the guy said that he didn't know how to ride horses. That's why they met today, so that Lucy could teach him this. She helped her friend onto the horse and made sure he was seated correctly. Then the girl got on her horse and the guys went for a horse ride. She told the guy when and how to control the reins so that the animal would obey him. Roman drove well, which surprised his friend, because she was sure of the opposite. She hoped to see her acquaintance being held like a lamb, but she realized that she liked having fun together like this even more. The girl decided to overtake her friend and demonstrate her skills to him. She pulled on the reins and forced her horse into a gallop. The guy liked this performance. The girl was also happy to have fun. After a while, the guys decided to give their animals a rest and dismounted. At this time, they arranged a small tea party together in the stable. Roman admitted that today was the first time they saw each other outside, and he was worried about it. They were not bored, and the guys always found something to talk about. Roman said that he always enjoyed spending time with his girlfriend, but he was worried that it was she who might be bored alone with him. The girl looked carefully at her friend and saw his sincerity. She remembered that her mother could not sleep because of the excitement before this meeting. In the evening, she read a lot of literature, trying to come up with something to do for the two of them. The girl tried to take into account her friend's love for active sports, although she did not really understand them. That is why she decided to confess everything to Roman and said that she was also worried. Just at this moment, the horse's rest had come to an end, and the girl offered to ride a little more. Roman happily supported his friend's idea, and they headed to the stalls. The guys had fun and rode together until the evening. At the end of the day, Lucy admitted that she really enjoyed the walk and was looking forward to the next meeting. Roman happily agreed and offered to meet next week. The sheep was very pleased that for the first time she had a real friend. Roman was pleased and could not imagine how happy Lucy was with their friendship. After that, they became inseparable. Baskerville and Leperdier, wolf and sheep. Their combination looked strange, and they loved to dream that there were no goals, horns, fangs, and other things in the world. The girl believed that such a world definitely existed somewhere, but for now she enjoyed hers. She paid no attention to her or the wolf's ancestry. The girl liked her dear friend Roman more and more each time, especially his tail, which constantly wagged happily from side to side. Therefore, the girl did not doubt Roman and knew that he liked her. Such a Roman Baskerville was very dear to her tender girlish heart. The guys went to a beautiful botanical garden to sort things out. When Roman asked if everything suited her, Lucy replied that everything was fine. She said that she would not have met with him if something did not suit her. Roman was confused. While riding on a huge, beautiful swing, they talked a little more. Lucy suggested that Roman write him a letter with the family seal. The guy asked his best friend what she thought about him. Lucy found this question absurd and said that she considered him her best friend. And after saying that he was the kindest wolf she had ever met, Roman was embarrassed. The phrase that perhaps he is even the kindest person in the world finally finished off the young man and made him confused. After doubting for a long time, the young man finally decided that the time had come to confess. Roman was very worried, but he overcame himself and was able to say that in fact he was only so kind to Lucy. The girl was amused by this, and in turn she admitted that she was only rude to him, but this did not bother Roman. Lucy said that if she were a lion, no one would say anything about them, but Roman quickly interrupted her and reminded her that they agreed not to bring up the topic again because he liked that she was a sheep. Lucy was very surprised and asked if the young man liked her just because she was a sheep. Roman replied that no matter who she was born, he would have liked her anyway, but now she is a sheep. After the young man said that he could not imagine her as a sheep, Lucy was at a loss. However, the girl analyzed it again and caught a different meaning, which made her smile. Lucy said that she really likes Roman a lot, and she hopes their friendship will last forever. The guy made her promise that they would remain like this forever, regardless of time. The girl was confused at first, but then she was touched that he wanted to communicate forever. A few days earlier, Roman and his brothers were in the city. Harold, Roman's older brother, tried to get him to admit that he was also a Baskerville, but Roman ignored him. His brother convinced him that admitting this would make him feel better, but Roman continued to remain silent. Harold reproached Roman that at the age of 16, he only folds origami in the banquet hall and rides horses at the hippodrome. Inside himself, Roman was furious, but did not show it, so that his brother would not decide that he was able to make Roman emotional. Harold was very surprised that Lucy was not bothered by such a disregard for her family. Roman must have thought about this because he sat motionless for a while. Harold, extremely concerned that Lucy was ignoring Roman's feelings, advised his brother not to be so careless. Roman was very annoyed listening to all this, because he believed that Harold was minding his own business. Roman asked his brother to stop, but he stood his ground and said that it was time for him to stop watching, and everyone was wearing rose-colored glasses. Harold said that if he and Lucy continued to play this friendship game, the girl would soon reject Roman, and he would wander around like a dog that had been abandoned by its owner. Suddenly, Alexander, who had previously been enthusiastically knitting something the entire trip, joined the conversation and recalled the incident when Rohans kicked out Harold. The knitting needles flew in his hands as if the guy was making movements automatically, without thinking about them. Alexander advised Harold to leave Roman behind and think about himself. In his opinion, Roman is much better than Harold. Alexander emphasized that Lucy at least agreed to go on a date with Roman. Harold was angry at Alexander because he recalled how Lucy came to visit Roman when he was sick, and Harold and Rohans did not have such a close relationship. Alexander joked that if Rohans became part of their family, Harold would jump out of the window with happiness. Harold was very hurt by his words, and he began to defend his beloved, saying that she loved him very much, but simply had not yet admitted it to herself. Alexander said that it would be nice for Harold to take off his rose-colored glasses himself and not reproach Roman at any opportunity. Roman said that Rohans does not have feelings for Harold, it is just a friendly affection, because as children they were often left to play together. After saying that it was Harold who was confusing love with friendship, he asked what Alexander was trying to achieve with this conversation. Alexander pretended not to hear his brother's question and continued knitting. Watching all this, Roman thought to himself how shameful this dog quarrel is for the wolf family. He was tired of thinking all the time that he was a wolf and that he was Baskerville. The guy dreamed of getting rid of these obsessive thoughts, but still continued to think about it. Roman loved to imagine his future ideal life. He compared the history of the Wolf family and the Baskervilles, and it frightened him. But everywhere there are both good and bad moments. This interested him. He did not understand how you could love one person all your life. After all, there are so many variables woven into every person's life. Once upon a time in the distant past, Roman had already thought about the topic of love, and even asked Alexander why love for only one person was considered weakness. Alexander was surprised that his younger brother was interested in this topic, and, chalking it all up to age, said that he himself would understand everything when the time comes. Alexander was amused that little Roman had so many questions, but he had no intention of answering them yet. Alexander only thoughtfully said that the world is full of people who do not value love and only use it for their own purposes. He explained to Roman that it is impossible to make another person love you just because you yourself love this person. Confused Roman, thinking how difficult it all was, decided not to ask anything more and remained silent. Alexander noticed his younger brother's vague reaction and imagined how, many years later, they would remember this conversation with laughter. After thinking a little, he decided to give some advice to Roman and said that he would have to do a lot of things to become attractive in the eyes of other people, and it would be better to do this before falling in love for the first time, because human feelings change very quickly. Harold entered the room, and hearing Alexander's phrase that their weakness was their pedigree, supported his older brother and added that this was a real curse. Roman still looked blankly, but this time at Harold. Harold asked Roman whether, in his opinion, there would be a happy ending if you still overcome all the difficulties and make your loved one love you. Roman wanted to answer, but realized that his brother would not like his answer and remained silent. Harold realized what his brother was going to answer, so he joked that he should not waste his time and enjoy the moment before he fell in love with anyone yet. Harold's question could not get out of Roman's head. The young man did not understand how any problem could remain if his loved one fell in love with him. He would like to ask his father about this too, but he was almost never at home, and Roman believed that the reason was him. The birth of Roman greatly affected his mother's health. She began to get sick. Little Roman was very worried about this, but could not do anything. His mother looked quite sick, the baby hardly saw her. Roman concluded that his father disliked him precisely for this. He constantly looked at his son with contempt and tried to avoid conversations. The little boy was confused, but did not know how to influence his father and attract his attention. He believed that he had hated him since his birth, and he could not change it in any way. Due to his difficult childhood, Roman still could not figure out what this love was. That same year, my mother died, after which my father locked himself in the winter cottage. Roman was very worried about his father's attitude towards him, so he decided to ask the opinion of his older brother Alexander. Alexander tried to convince Roman that his father did not hate him and that everything would soon get better. Alexander, to console his brother, said that when he loves someone, he will be able to understand his father, because love is very cruel and can both bring joy and happiness and cause severe pain. Love was always very merciless, especially for the Baskervilles. Roman still didn't understand what Alexander was trying to say, but he didn't ask again. A few days later, Harold realized that he had fallen in love with Rohans, but did not know what to do, so he shouted about it to the whole palace. His brothers Roman and Alexander came running to the cry and began to observe the guy's actions. Roman was not sure exactly who Rohans was, but assumed that this was the girl from the polar bear family with whom his brother had been friends since childhood. Alexander immediately understood who he was talking about and reproached Harold for tormenting and bullying her so much, and now he realized that he loved her. Harold was hurt by this and began to make excuses that he himself did not understand why he did this. He plunged into the memories of their childhood and fell silent for a couple of minutes. In his defense, he decided to say that she did not like playing with other children, but Harold was fun. However, now they were much older than just children, and this turned out to be stupid. Harold covered his face with his hands and began to cry because Rohans might have another man. Roman looked at his older brother and did not want to become the same as him. Alexander sat his middle one down on the sofa and tried to calm him down. Harold went completely crazy and intended to visit his girlfriend every day. Alexander noted that if the guy did this, it would be considered a crime. Be that as it may, the girl's family is not so great. They are ordinary people who organized an association of doctors, where it is not pedigree or race that is important. Therefore, if he does something, the reputation of the Baskerville family will be tarnished. Now, due to the presence of an opponent, it was necessary to think through our further steps more carefully. The older brothers literally discussed the possibility of killing their opponent. Roman was disappointed with his brothers and couldn't believe they were discussing this now. The boy believed that if a guy really loves a girl, then he should not interfere in her relationship. The guy was sure that his brother should not have bullied and tormented the girl from the very beginning. He also did not understand why Alexander, as an older brother, encouraged such behavior at all. Harold was furious that his little brother was intruding on their adult conversation. He ordered the little guy not to talk nonsense, because they were real Baskervilles. The middle brother promised to have a good laugh at the younger one when it was his turn to fall in love with someone. He wondered how the boy would then follow his own words. He hoped that if Roman fell in love with someone, he would under no circumstances get burned in front of his brother. Alexander sat on the sofa and laughed at how cute his younger ones were swearing. That evening, the guys didn't do anything. They just waited until nightfall and went to bed. Alexander, as the eldest, put his younger brother to bed. The boy was worried about the quarrel during the day, so he asked what he had done wrong. Alexander said that Harold loved the girl very much, but he didn't want to admit it to himself. Rohannes is the whole world to him now, and for Rohannes, Harold is something like a small affair. It is because of this difference in their feelings that he hates her so much that it drives him crazy. This happens even though the guy actually loves her. The problem is that he loved her much more than she loved him. Love towards Baskerville is cruel and suffocating, as if you are standing on the top of an icy mountain. Roman couldn't believe it, because everything was fine with Alexander. Yes, it's not love that's exactly the relationship that the eldest brother and sister Marcel now had. A very calm and gentle atmosphere that does not suffocate you at all. Alexander was surprised that in the eyes of his younger brother, he looked completely fine. In fact, this was far from the case. The boy himself will understand everything when he grows up. Even if he doesn't want to know, at some point he himself will suffer the same fate. After this, Harold was bedridden for a very long time due to illness, so he prevented everyone from sleeping with his screams. The little boy did not understand why his older brother was killing himself like that. Every night the man cried as if her life was over. Roman did not understand at all what was so special and beautiful about this love. A few years later, when the boy turned 15, he had to go to his first social reception. They accommodated him halfway and did not arrange a separate debut. Instead, they sent him to a regular reception to hang around a little and get to know people. The brothers advised Roman to just laugh if someone bothers him too much. The boy really hated such gatherings, so he didn't want to go anywhere. Ironically, in a place he thought he hated to the core, he met a girl. On the one hand, completely unknown to him, but on the other hand, always arousing his curiosity, she attracted him. This was his first love, which he had waited for so long and feared so much. The chosen one turned out to be a pretty girl who also did not like to be in a crowd of people. What was interesting was that she belonged to a family of predators, but she had horns on her head. The girl appeared before Roman in a very sweet and attractive appearance. The guy felt like bells were ringing in his head. Without hesitation, Roman ran after the girl to the balcony, and at that moment realized what love is. After her debut, the girl was periodically sent letters with declarations of love. They all handed over the envelopes, and then covered their faces with their hands and ran away. But Roman was not at all interested in these love games, so he simply ignored them. One day the guy even asked his older brother what would happen if he didn't realize that he loved someone, or what will happen to him if he mistakes ordinary sympathy for love. Alexander replied that if he cannot find a clear explanation for his feelings, then it cannot be love. In their Baskerville family, they never confuse love with any other feelings. The guy was afraid that everything might be different for him, because there was no certainty. Harold approached his younger brother and asked what was happening to him. The boy pointed to the girl with horns and asked who she was. The brother replied that this girl was a mutant from the leopardier pride of lions. Their families were feuding, so they didn't know much about each other. Roman said that he wanted to meet this little girl and asked his brother to introduce him to her. To him, Lucy seemed like a real angel who seemed to have descended from heaven. However, Harold protested strongly that Roman was paying attention to a sheep from the leopardier clan. However, Roman could no longer be stopped. The guy simply dreamed of talking to this girl. The middle brother understood that stronger artillery was needed here and rushed to look for the elder Alexander. He tried to stop his younger brother, but Roman was already rushing forward to the girl. Mentally, he told himself to be bolder and gather all his courage into a fist. He collected his thoughts and followed the girl straight to the balcony. Roman came out to her and saw the girl so close for the first time. Lucy clearly did not expect that someone would follow her onto the balcony. There was no special plan, so he just smiled and said hello. He felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. On the way home in the carriage, all he could talk about was how incredible Lucy looked. Alexander could not believe that his younger brother fell in love so quickly, literally at first sight. He asked Roman to tell him more about the girl, but he only said her name with a smile on his face. But Harold added that the girl belongs to the leopardier lions family. It seemed as if this was literally the first time Roman had heard anything else about this girl. Alexander still hoped that his brothers were not talking about the eldest daughter of the married couple Balzac and Sandy Lepardier. The young man clearly understood how difficult their life would now be. Both brothers understood that now nothing would stop young Roman in his love for the girl. Now the bells are ringing in the life of another young wolf. None of the brothers thought that the guy would plunge into his world of love so quickly. Although Alexander was always told that Lepardier was just a beautiful rapper, this was not the case. They were a very famous family in political circles, founded by the Edenverse royal family. The older brother understood that their dear Roman would go down a very thorny path. The biggest problem was that their two families had opposing political positions. At a minimum, they should have tried to ensure that they were not sentenced to life imprisonment. Roman wasn't at all sure that they could please Lucy's family. Even if aristocracy and monarchy acquire only a nominal character, the classes will always remain unchanged. Therefore, proposing a political marriage is unlikely to be possible. For a family that wouldn't even look your way if you were of a different breed, Baskerville was the premier hybrid of hybrids. Alexander suddenly became interested in how it happened that a sheep was born in such a family. Once upon a time, there was the eldest son of a duke, the younger brother of the emperor, who suddenly fell in love with a commoner sheep. As a result, this woman was never able to become part of the pride, but her children received recognition in it. The middle son was sure that if not for wartime, even such a story would have been impossible. At that time, the emperor and princes died in the war, so restoring the family was more important than anything else. That is why such a romantic story took place in such a family. That is why the birth of Lucy attracted a lot of attention to the family love story. In fact, the public loves romantic love stories. After the birth of this child, brothers outside the pride of the entire family were completely blocked. In the end, the birth of Lucy put an end to love. It's unlikely that any family would want another sheep, but this gave Roman a chance. If something goes wrong, it may be seen as handing over the daughter for the benefit of her family. A simple option would be to go back in time and simply prevent the guys from meeting. Roman looked at his older brothers and dreamed only of being left alone. Alexander turned to the younger one and asked what kind of person Lucy was. The young guy was perplexed by this question because no one had asked him about it before. He remembered the beautiful Lucy, who talked and had fun with him in the evening on the balcony. Her most important quality was that the girl was sweet both in appearance and in character. Alexander realized that today they would not find a solution to this problem. Roman said that he would figure out everything that was happening himself and asked the brothers not to interfere in this matter. Harold said that he would not interfere in this matter because he was too lazy. Alexander walked up to his younger brother and extended his hand to his head. He ruffled the boy's hair and said that he had grown up. Roman didn't like that his brothers still treated him like a child. The boy only hoped that he could find happiness with Lucy. He remembered the girl in great detail and found absolutely everything about her endearing. Her big blue eyes with huge black eyelashes were cute. Everyone told him that love was cruel to the Baskervilles, but for him it was very tender. The only problem was whether the wolf could love the sheep. Some time passed and real winter came outside. The poor little bunny ran through the forest, hoping to hide from the eyes of the hunters. Today the three wolf brothers came here to relieve stress. The eldest was calm about hunting, the middle one adored it, but the youngest loved animals too much. Alexander believed that the only thing they missed in today's hunt was his father's company. Then he came to his senses and looked at his younger brother, who suddenly became sad. Alexander apologized to the boy because he meant something completely different, but Harold noticed that it was time for the guy to become a little less vulnerable. The guys spread out and began to look for prey, and soon they came across a deer. One of the shooters had already cocked his gun and was preparing to hit the target. Suddenly, Roman jumped out of his seat and ran quickly forward. His feet pounded the cold ground so loudly that they could have scared away the weight of the forest. The guys were chasing one unfortunate deer that got in their way. They ran for quite some time, then a loud shot was heard. The shot prey lay on the ground and trembled in its death throes. Roman was the most tender of all three brothers, so he couldn't look at it. He saw tears in the eyes of the dying animal, which was looking straight at him. The boy leaned down and carefully covered the dead deer's eyes with his hand. The guy himself didn't understand why he suddenly started doing such strange things. At that moment, for some reason, he thought about his beloved girl Lucy. Lucy is a person, and hunting is just fun. They were completely different things. That evening, the girl stroked the guy on the head for the first time. Roman really felt very happy and was glad that he was born. He hoped that he would soon be able to see the girl again, but receptions were not held so often. That same evening, Roman rode home in the evening in a carriage and talked about it with his brothers. Harold looked at his youngest and noticed that every day his condition was getting worse and worse. But Roman and Lucy were simply folding origami together on the balcony. The young man twirled his finger at his temple and said that his brother was completely abnormal. Alexander just laughed because it looked very cute. It was that evening that Roman asked the brothers to start holding receptions every week. This was a very unexpected proposal that needed to be carefully considered. But Alexander believed that they should at least somehow support their younger brother. But he thought that the younger one would have to put in as much effort as in the case of Harold. Due to some strange circumstances, receptions were held quite often that month. Only Lucy had no idea that they were all organized for only one purpose. Roman went on and on organizing such events to meet the girl. But a small scandal broke out at home due to unexpected expenses. Harold suggested that his brother exchange contact information with the girl and meet somewhere else, because otherwise the family spent too much money on organizing various charity parties. However, Roman shocked his brothers even more when he said that he would be a vegetarian. Alexander believed that Roman might have his own reasons for this. At first, I thought that Lucy said something to the guy that made him decide not to eat meat anymore. Alexander decided not to meddle too much in the personal life of his younger brother and let him deal with everything himself. However, Harold was not very happy about what was happening, who felt like an outcast because of this. Every evening, when the sun set behind the horizon, the house lights were turned on. Roman went to bed and always twirled several origami figures in his hands before going to bed. He was born a predator and worried that Lucy might be afraid of him. He hoped they could be more than just friends. The girl can be like sugar cookies, but the guy was afraid that his instinct would hurt her. She was like a deer he was hunting, and that made him want him even more. The dark side told Roman that he would love this girl so much that he would want to catch her and eat her. She told him that the guy would be ready to do anything to get Lucy. The guy's heart was pounding madly in his chest from the mere thought that he would be able to get Lucy for himself. He wants to get her body and soul, flesh, blood, and even heart. He must be ready to do anything. The boy began to think that he was useless if Lucy didn't love him back. The dark personality began to strangle the guy, but fortunately, Alexander ran into the room. The middle brother ran after him, after which both did not stand on the threshold and looked at Roman in surprise. They realized that their family curse had begun to affect him too. The guys were worried about their younger brother and tried to calm him down. Roman was in so much pain, it even seemed to him as if he was going to die right now. The boy cried bitterly and kept calling for his older brother. Roman did not understand at all what was happening to him now. He wanted to lock Lucy somewhere so that only he could see her. Roman realized that if Lucy did not love him, then there would be no point in living anymore. But the older brothers looked at their youngest and were very worried about his health. The young wolf came to his senses, then lost consciousness again for an unknown period of time. He was told that this pain associated with his growth is something all wolves go through before becoming adults. They've all been through it too, so they understand what it's like for him now. It was a terrible illness that seemed to tear apart the whole body and lasted for several days. Alexander had it the worst because he had to go through it on his own, so he felt very alone. Roman didn't understand what the problem was because Marcel loved his older brother. However, not everything was as rosy as people thought years later. Alexander admitted that he sometimes imagines that he absolutely does not know what love is. Sometimes he has to lock the darkest feeling inside himself deep, deep. Sometimes he even imagines that he doesn't know who Marcel is. Let everything be fine with them now and they really love each other. However, Alexander said that other people's love fades away too quickly. It is worth fearing even that Marcel's love, which he so philanthropizes, may change. She may one day say that she has fallen in love with another man and is leaving him. Or she could die in childbirth, or from any other illness. Before meeting Marcel, Alexander thought that all this was complete nonsense. Wolves are etymologically possessed by one person for their entire lives. Therefore, this person seems fragile to them, like a Christmas tree toy. Roman was surprised by this, because in his eyes these two were an ideal couple. He remembered the beautifully sweet girl Marcel with purple hair. She always treated him like her own little brother and spoiled him. With Alexander, they looked like a real ideal married couple. Alexander once even joked that no one was allowed to fall in love with his girlfriend, not even his brothers. Only after finding true love did the wolves understand what it was like for all their predecessors. Alexander was afraid that if he lost Marseille, he would become just like his father. Even if he was alive, he would live as an empty shell, clinging to memories for the rest of his life. Now Harold also understood his older brother's suffering. He really wanted Rohans to truly love him and was ready to do anything for this. But it seemed to him that this would not happen. He was ready to go crazy. Harold was afraid that the girl would never love him back. He was really afraid of someday going crazy from this love. Alexander noticed that the longer his brother pursues the girl, the more she wants to run away from him. Roman was afraid that depending on Lucy's decision, she could end up like one of his brothers. After a few days, he finally came to his senses, and the pain had gone away for the most part. The brothers told Roman that even on the verge of losing consciousness, he continued to mutter Lucy's name all the time. Now the guy was irritated by all his brothers, who began to constantly make fun of him. Only after this illness did Roman understand why their entire family was hiding their dietary habits. This was because they simply could not control them on their own. The Baskervilles were officially cut off from political and economic marriage proposals for a long time. Because it was impossible to predict when love would overtake one of them, it was a time bomb. Roman hoped that this fate would bypass him, but he was wrong. It was very much like some kind of mental illness that Lucy was never supposed to know about. At that moment, Roman hated himself because he was afraid of himself. However, he still wanted to possess Lucy so that she could belong to him. He didn't want the girl to be afraid of him because she was so bright and cheerful. During his illness, Lucy visited him once at his home. It was only a short visit, but her scent permeated the entire room. The guy still couldn't believe that Lucy came to his personal room. Harold believed that his brother should be grateful to him for this visit. But then the guy saw how his younger brother was literally going crazy over the girl, and he felt disgusted. Roman literally worshipped the mug that Lucy held in her hands, pressing it to her mouth. He understood that this was real madness, but he could not help himself. Since then, the guy kept the small mug like the apple of his eye and protected it. He managed to exchange contact information with Lucy, so now he could meet her whenever he wanted. And while Roman was enjoying his love, Harold was recovering from what he saw in the office. It turned out that Roman wanted to buy the hippodrome for the sake of meeting Lucy. At first, Alexander could not believe his ears that the guy was making such large purchases. However, then he smiled and simply decided to buy a hippodrome to please his brother. Harold believed that if they continued to indulge the guy in this spirit, they would completely ruin him. They sincerely believed that if Roman started dating Lucy, he would completely bankrupt their house. However, a few days later, Roman was riding in a carriage and was very unhappy about something. Now the guy was in big trouble for getting involved with Leperdier. Now all he can do is watch Lucy find her happiness with another man. Roman wanted to answer something to this, but did not have time because Alexander interrupted him. He noticed that it was more like a story about Harold's own personal life. The guy was worried because if none of them got married, then the same thing would overtake them all. However, it was at that moment that the brothers noticed a wedding ring on their older brother's finger. Alexander said that Marcel proposed to him, and they will get married next fall, when the girl graduates from university. The guys were incredibly happy for their older brother, but at the same time they themselves were very jealous of him. After that, Alexander walked for some time in an elevated structure and hummed songs to himself. Harold told Roman that his older brother had started to annoy him lately, and if he suddenly disappears in the near future, then everyone will know whose hands it was. And the motive for the murder would not be the desire to inherit the family and business. He was simply infuriated by his happy face. However, Roman noted that he would not be able to carry parcels to him in prison because he himself would be busy managing the family business. The guy decided to change the topic and asked the middle brother about his girlfriend Rohan's. Judging by the expression on his face, everything was more or less in order with them too. Roman was angry because he was the only one who had problems in his personal life. The possible problem was that he had formed a friendly relationship with Lucy from the very beginning. Maybe friendship prevents Lucy from seeing him as a real guy. However, in the end, Roman decided not to rush because he had a lot of time ahead to make the girl fall in love with him. Lucy really wanted to go to one place because they served very tasty desserts. Roman was glad that the girl came to this place for the first time with him. He looked at the sheep, smiled, and said that he really liked it. Lucy didn't understand a little what he meant by these words and clarified. Roman admitted that he likes to do something together with her for the first time. These words went straight to the sheep's heart and left her speechless for a moment. The girl looked at her friend and did not understand why he was acting so sensitively. Lucy really appreciated that Roman was always so honest with her. She looked at his smiling face, and the girl's mood lifted from just the sight of him. What especially gave the guy away was his tail swaying from side to side. Looking at all this, Lucy realized one simple thing. When she saw Roman smile, she stopped feeling like she had done something wrong. And the girl gained confidence that she could make friends with other people too. That's why Lucy told her parents she wanted to go to the local public school. She was going to live and study there as Hutman, not as Leperdier, in honor of the sheep's grandmother. The parents were worried about their daughter and hoped that there she would be able to find what she could not find here. As Lucy had asked, her father looked for a place for her where hardly anyone knew her and which was a fair distance from their home. The head of the Leperdier family placed several envelopes with invitations from different schools on the table in front of Lucy. The girl realized that she would need to look at them and make her choice. Ono calmly took the envelopes from her father's desk and left his office. Lucy asked to be transferred to school before meeting Roman and now did not know what to do. However, the girl hoped that they would keep in touch at a distance. But she was worried that Roman might make new friends while she was away. Lucy realized that she didn't want this and found herself jealous of her friend. She had already gone too far with this school and could not turn away from her intended path. But she also couldn't just ask the wolf to go with her. These thoughts occupied her head constantly and did not allow her to sleep until the next meeting. Even Roman noticed her confusion and said that the girl was unusually silent. His words seemed to bring Lucy out of some kind of trance, and the girl asked to pour her more tea. The drink in her hands was almost completely cold as she sat still and thoughtful. Roman asked why his girlfriend started buying winter clothes so early in the year. He assumed that she was going to go somewhere, and he was right. But Lucy did not admit this to him and simply said that she likes to buy everything in advance. In fact, she wanted to ask a friend to go with her, but did not dare to do so. She didn't want to part with the wolf, but she didn't have the courage to tell him. Every evening before going to bed, Lucy was worried that she could not tell Roman about her imminent departure. She simply looked at the mountains of things that were already folded and ready to go, and now stood in the corner of the room. The girl understood that her silence would not delay the departure date, but she could not do anything with herself. She begged her parents to let her go, but now she didn't want to leave. The sheep was worried that this news could upset Roman. She really wanted Baskerville to be friends only with herself. Lucy doubted that this happened between all friends. The girl sincerely hoped that Roman had the same feelings for her. She was upset because she was going to tell him about her departure today. Then footsteps were heard. Someone approached the door of the girl's room and knocked on it. It was Lucy's younger brother who asked to be let inside. Lion Cub asked if Lucy told Roman about her departure this afternoon. He was worried that his sister would leave without warning his friend about it. The girl was embarrassed, so she rudely remarked that she would deal with her affairs herself. The Lion Cub did not let up and clarified whether Baskerville was really just a friend for her or someone more. Lucy sat stunned on her bed and could not answer this. Seeing this reaction from his older sister, the younger one continued his thought. He suggested that the parents allowed the girl to leave only because of her dangerous closeness with the Baskerville family. Lucy did not expect this and asked her brother to clarify his words. The Lion Cub recalled that Roman was the first to approach her because she is a leopardier. But the girl decided that her brother was simply interested in her opinion on this topic. The boy knew rumors about the danger of the Baskervilles and was worried about his sister, to which Lucy laughed and said that Roman cannot be dangerous because he is naive and kind, like a dog. But the Lion Cub did not let up and was worried that the wolf and the sheep could secretly meet. He asked Lucy if she had a feeling that Roman treated her as his beloved woman. Louis added that the Baskervilles were famous for always taking whatever they wanted. In addition, their family was especially obsessed with love relationships, judging by the same rumors. But Lucy noticed that she had never cared about rumors before in her life. Louis could not understand such a simple attitude of his older sister towards friendship with Baskerville. He heard that literally not so long ago, complete disorder and real chaos reigned in their family. In order to get a woman, they burned entire cities or betrayed the ruler. They were ready to destroy everything for the sake of love and even massacred each other. Lucy was unpleasant to listen to all these conjectures and rumors about her best friend's family. But Louis added something about the mental illness of the family and reminded that all their children were born wolves. He wouldn't want to doubt Roman, but he and his sister looked a lot like lovers. He asked the girl to draw a line between them because everyone around them had been discussing them lately. Louis asked what Lucy would do if Baskerville really fell in love with her. The girl understood that in some ways her younger brother was right, and this did not make her happy. She just decided to protect herself from unnecessary guarantees and said that the guy was crazy in his speculations. The girl was angry with Louis because according to him, Roman was a psycho and she herself was a fool in love with him. She even asked her brother why he was so worried about it. Lucy said that Roman was her first friend and her brother is now insulting him. The girl understood that no one knew the wolf cub as well as she did. Lucy even doubted that her brother knew her well enough. The girl covered her eyes with her hands and cried because her brother believed these rumors. Louis realized he had said something stupid, so he tried to calm his sister down. He considered his older sister very fragile, so he was worried about her relationship with Roman. The girl didn't want to listen to this anymore, so she asked her brother to leave and let her sleep. Louis realized that it was better to leave the girl alone now, so he headed towards the exit. However, he noticed that even if the girl changes her last name and moves to another place, she will still remain his sister. Lucy continued to think about her brother's words, about how she and the wolf looked like a couple in love. The girl wondered if her wolf cub encountered such misunderstandings with each new friend. Only now did she understand why the guy hid his last name at the first meeting. It was like she was now planning to leave, hiding her last name. After this conversation, quite a lot of time passed, spring ended, and summer came. This only meant that the high school year had come to an end. The teacher stood near the blackboard and gave the last instructions to his students. He noted that if people do not have the courage to lose everything, then they will not be able to achieve anything. With these words, he finished his speech and proceeded to presenting certificates. Everyone was called in turn, so Lucy was one of the very last to get her form. The girl doubted that it was possible to confirm all the efforts made with one piece of paper. Only now did it dawn on her that maybe she hadn't been trying hard enough all this time. Lucy realized that she had never approached anyone without fear of being hurt. The girl even thought at home whether they would forgive her right now for this idea of transferring to a public school. She thought about what she would gain if she were brought there, and what she would lose. She spent the rest of the day with these thoughts, which was already drawing to a close. This meant that Lucy was going out with her friend Roman again. They went to a popular exhibition, but did it after the excitement had already subsided. Because of this, the halls were now quite deserted, but Roman did not notice this at all. Her brother's words made Lucy think more about their meetings, and now she tried to look at them from the outside. They were together at the exhibition and looked very much like two lovers. Only now did the girl realize how they looked in the eyes of other people. For the rest of the evening, Lucy watched her friend and tried to analyze his behavior. Roman constantly told her some stories, but the girl did not pay attention to a single picture. After visiting the exhibition, the guys went to drink coffee and chat over desserts. For a long time, Lucy did not dare to say the question that worried her out loud. However, then she collected her thoughts and asked if Roman had a girlfriend. The guy was so taken aback that he even dropped his fork from his hands and silently stared at his friend. And then he cleared his throat embarrassedly and asked the girl to repeat her question. She didn't notice anything strange, so she asked again if the guy had a girl he liked. Roman became embarrassed, said that there was no one like that, and asked why Lucy was interested in this. He even suggested that the girl could have heard this from someone, to which Lucy replied that no one had told her anything like that. She noted to herself that the wolf had not yet found a girl he liked. However, this also meant that she was not included in this list either. Roman once again asked why his friend asked such a question. He noticed that he also had something to ask his friend the sheep. He was interested in what the girl would do if he had a loved one. He was very interested in what exactly the sheep wanted to know from him. Lucy said that she would congratulate him, but she asked simply out of curiosity. She also asked why this question seemed strange to the wolf. After this conversation, Lucy decided for herself that she did not consider her friend crazy. After visiting the exhibition and having tea with Roman, the girl returned to her home. She lay down on the bed, thinking only about the fact that she again could not say about her departure. At this rate, she could well have reported this literally the day before departure. Lucy didn't know how to overcome her fear, but she wanted to do something about it. She thought that Roman might fall in love with someone after she left. The girl was worried that having fallen in love with someone, the wolf would stop paying attention to her. She believed that if Roman had a beloved, he would be ready to do anything for her. Lucy was sure that the wolf would be even more attentive to his beloved than to her, because simple sympathy and true love are definitely different things. The girl suddenly noticed that these thoughts suddenly made her feel somehow bad. She again imagined that Roman might have a closer person than herself. Then the wolf will pay more attention to this girl and leave Lucy aside. The more she thought about it, the more painful it became for some reason. The girl suddenly realized that the problem was with her and doubted that she would be able to say anything about her departure. Suddenly, her train of thoughts was interrupted by a knock coming from the window. The girl could not understand what kind of sound it was, so she suddenly sat up straight on the bed. Lucy realized that the knocking was coming from the window, so she headed towards it. The girl slowly walked up to the frame and looked down, surprised. Right under her windows late at night stood her friend the wolf cub Roman. The guy looked very embarrassed, even his ears were down. It took the girl some time to go down to the street at 1 in the morning and talk to him. At first she assumed that the wolf ran away from home or had a fight with his brothers, but he denied everything. Instead of a normal explanation, the guy started talking about the weather. It seemed to the girl that any answer she gave would please him and make him swing his tail from side to side. It was clear that their conversation was not going well, because the guys had been sitting in silence for some time. Lucy even suggested that her friend might have done something wrong at home. Therefore, the girl decided not to be shy and asked directly why he came to her at night. Roman admitted that he was going to tell her something important. He wanted to clear up the rumors that were circulating about their family in society. The guy was worried that the girl would be embarrassed to ask him herself and would suffer because of it. He said that when a member of their family falls in love with someone, he ceases to distinguish between heaven and earth. Sometimes he cannot achieve reciprocity or loses his beloved, then terrible things happen. In this case, the wolf goes crazy or commits suicide. These words truly frightened the poor lamb. She even shuddered. The girl understood how difficult it was for her friend to tell her all this now. Roman added that in fact these are just delusional stories, just rumors made up by those who want to harm the Baskerville family. That is why his father, who lost his mother, is said to be half crazy. His older brother has also been in a relationship for several years and is very happy. Lucy pressed her hands to her chest and said that she had not heard anything like that. Roman continued his story and added that he was not going to marry by agreement. He sincerely believed that bargaining for love was actually disgusting. He then turned to his girlfriend and asked what she thought about it. The guy silently looked at Lucy and waited for her to answer his question. The girl looked straight into her friend's eyes and agreed with his thoughts. In her family, immediately after her birth, relatives terminated the marriage agreement with her. Wolf Roman Baskerville was one of those who dream of marriage for love. The guy was very embarrassed by his story and thought it was a very boring story. But Lucy noticed that he also listened to her stories about what had accumulated. The girl stroked the wolf's head and said that she understood him. She understood that it was very difficult to be misunderstood because of her appearance or family. The girl doubted that this was the only reason why the guy decided to visit her at such a late hour. Besides, she was sick of supporting him in the same yard where she was going to leave him. Roman added that he is afraid of something else related to the girl he loves. He was worried that she might misunderstand everything because of all these rumors. In fact, he had a loved one, and the guy asked permission to talk about him. As soon as he opened his mouth, Lucy interrupted the guy and said that she would leave soon. The guy immediately stopped and asked what she meant by these words. He began asking the girl when she was leaving and where she was going. Moreover, he sincerely did not understand why this was happening so unexpectedly. Lucy told him that she had transferred to a public school in the province, which was very far away. Later, she did not understand why at that moment she behaved so cowardly with him. She apologized for not talking about it earlier and promised to come back for the holidays. The girl did it now because she didn't want to hear about her friend's love in the yard where they were destined to part. After all, if a guy fell in love with someone, then he should have forgotten about her. Roman was worried that he didn't have time to tell Lucy about something because he didn't know that she would leave. The guy was upset that the sheep was talking about it just now. If the decision to leave had been made a long time ago, then she could have said so earlier. Lucy was ashamed of her action, so she sat in silence for a while. Then she said that she did not know why she did this, and that she was leaving only for a while. She is still Roman's friend, and nothing will change in their relationship because of this. The wolf was already upset, but after the words about his friend, he suddenly became even more upset. He realized that the girl was leaving her noble family because she wanted to live freely. He figured that before moving to a new school, she decided to use him to relieve her boredom a little. Lucy didn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about, but the wolf had already risen from his place. He wondered if Lucy thought even a little about him when she decided to leave. The girl tried to calm him down, but the young man did not want to be touched. He said that he did not understand his girlfriend at all and was completely confused. Lucy understood that it was entirely her fault, so she tried to stop Roman. But the younger Baskerville was very upset, so he turned around and rushed away. The girl screamed after him again and again, but the wolf cub did not stop. Only after this did Lucy realize that it was useless to call the guy. He left. The thought came into her head that he loved her, but the girl still couldn't believe it. She still thought it was impossible, but now she had lost the opportunity to know the answer, perhaps forever. It was already past 1 in the morning. Everything around was illuminated only by dim lanterns. Lucy continued to stand in the same place and believed that she should not have done this. She should not have informed her friend of her departure in such a terrible way. After that, the girl came to her senses and headed towards the house, where her brother was already meeting her. The boy saw his sister from afar and immediately rushed to meet her. He said that he was very worried about the girl and thought that she decided to run away. Louis saw that Lucy was very upset and was ready to cry any minute. The brother helped the girl into the house immediately, after which she said that she considered herself a terrible person, real trash. All this time she had no friends, not because of her family, but because she has a cowardly and selfish character. Louis listened to all this and could not believe that his older sister was saying this. The girl realized that it was that night that she lost Roman. She regretted not having explained everything properly a little earlier. Little by little, Lucy stopped understanding who she was, so she wanted to be among people who would take care of her. This is exactly the kind of person her friend Roman turned out to be in her life. The girl believed that if she didn't leave now, she wouldn't be able to do anything like that ever again. However, she couldn't stop thinking about who the girl was that the wolf liked. Lucy was worried that after she left, another person might completely take her place. She wrote a letter asking him to contact her when Roman stopped being angry. The girl admitted that it was all her fault, and she shouldn't have talked about her departure in that way. But she was worried that her friends would part so easily. The girl was still wondering whether her friend would go with her. Immediately after that, she began to wonder if she had actually done wrong. The girl crumpled up the next written letter and threw it away with the rest of the trash. She sat for a very long time, trying to compose at least some kind of adequate message. Thus, behind the endless writing of letters, the old day ended and a new one began. Louis came to his sister and demanded that you tell him what happened that night. He looked at her sister's eyes and promised that she would not tell her parents anything. Only after this did Lucy agree to tell him about everything that happened then. He didn't understand how Roman could be angry just because his friend was leaving to go to public school. The guy added that such a crazy wolf is not worthy of his older sister's tears. The girl was surprised by such a violent reaction from her younger brother, but she was flattered by it. Louis was very angry with Roman and thought that he was taking on too much. The guy was sure that his sister did not have to report to anyone regarding all her life plans. Lucy was sure that she should apologize to her friend before leaving. But Louis forbade her to do this, because the wolf showed himself too emotional in such a situation. The guy didn't like the fact that this was not the first time his sister was crying because of Baskerville, even though Lucy told him that last time she cried for a different reason. Louis noticed that ordinary friends just don't behave like that with each other. However, his words seemed to have no effect on Lucy's mood. The girl believed that it was all her fault. She was too sensitive and terribly tactless. The lion cub could not believe that his beloved sister spoke of herself like that. He didn't understand why if the name Baskerville came up in a conversation, his sister immediately began to be so servile. The girl asked her brother not to be angry, but rather to tell her how to make peace with a friend if you quarreled. If it was a matter of winning or losing, then Lucy wanted to lose and end it. She later recalled that at that moment she wanted to look into Roman's face and apologize to him. The girl was worried that the young wolf did not accept her messages. What she really wanted to know was how to make peace, not how to win. Louis saw that his sister was completely unstuck, so he ran up to her. He tried to calm Lucy down and said that it was Baskerville who acted badly in this situation. Even if friends have a fight because one of you is leaving, the other should say goodbye to him properly. Lucy thought that if she had continued to go to private school, this would never have happened. However, Louis noticed that they had already quarreled, and this fact could not be changed. The guy said that some people just need a little more time to calm down after a fight, and also asked after the reconciliation to tell Roman to be careful at night. Lucy finally smiled that her brother was on her side and supporting her. From that moment on, Roman stopped appearing in secular society, and the girl could not find him anywhere. At all events, she no longer hid on the balcony or in her room. Every time Lucy came to the event, she hoped that Roman would come today. She walked around all the rooms and looked for him among the crowd of people. She peered into the faces of those present, hoping to find her friend among them. The girl watched other people just having fun together and having a good time. However, Roman still did not appear at such events, so the girl had not seen him for a long time. So this time, Lucy again stood near the wall, until someone suddenly called her by name. The girl raised her head to see the man who was addressing her. It turned out to be a pretty girl with long, dark, almost black hair. The girl was luxuriously dressed, and with every step she came closer and closer to Lucy. She smiled friendly, and her amber eyes radiated confidence. The girl came close enough to the heroine and asked if she remembered her. It seemed to Lucy that her interlocutor was literally glowing with happiness. The girl looked luxurious, even for this social event, in her beautiful black and burgundy dress. Of course, Lucy recognized her interlocutor, because it was Sue Kane. The girl remembered that there had once been times when they studied in the same class. Kane was the captain of the riding team, and Lucy loved watching her practice. Sue was surprised by this because she thought that the sheep was not at all interested in the life of the class. But Lucy said embarrassedly that it was absolutely not true. The interlocutor was glad to hear that the girl was interested in the life of her class. She asked how Lucy had been all this time, and they began a dialogue. Sue admitted that she had to work up the courage to talk to the sheep. From the outside, she seemed a little rude and unapproachable to all other people. At school, all she ever did was fold origami or read a book. Therefore, the girl was glad that she was able to talk to a classmate who had always been interesting to her. She asked Lucy which high school she was going to. The girl admitted that she was going to study at a provincial public school. After that, Kane's classmate suggested introducing her to several people if she didn't mind. Lucy didn't mind, so she happily accepted her friend's invitation. She didn't mind talking to new people and making acquaintances in order to quickly forget about Roman. She also thanked her classmate with a smile on her face for being the first to talk to her. Sue noted that the conversation was also very pleasant for her, and she did not regret anything. The girl realized that Lucy turned out to be very friendly, which did not coincide with the rumors. After that, the girls said goodbye and went in different directions to do their own thing. Lucy realized that I myself had been mistaken about myself before, and so were others even more so. The girl realized that the fact that she talked to Sue as if nothing had happened thanks to Roman. Lucy admitted to herself that she wanted to see him and apologize to the guy. She was interested in what he was doing now and where he was spending his time. The girl remembered her friend's radiant smile and his beautiful silver eyes. She missed them having fun together. During all these reflections, time flew by completely unnoticed for her. Day turned into night, and the night gradually ended, and a new day began. There were 2 weeks left before departure. Lucy could not part with her friend like that. She didn't care about her own pride, so the girl directly wrote that she wanted to see the guy. He was the only one like him for her, and she was ready to wait for him in the garden. But apparently, she herself was not such an important person for Roman. After a while, evening came when another social reception was to be held. The hall was, as usual, richly decorated. Smart people in dresses and suits were scurrying around everywhere. Lucy also dressed up for the event, even wearing heels. And now the girl was in a hurry somewhere, carrying a package and a letter in her hands. She saw Alexander Baskerville ahead and hurried straight towards him. The young man stood surrounded by other people, but drew attention to the girl. He politely asked forgiveness from his interlocutors and walked away for a minute. The wolf approached Lucy and noticed that he remembered his brother Roman's friend very well. The girl was incredibly happy that she had a chance to contact her friend. She clutched her letters in her hands and said that she was leaving in a few days. Therefore, she asked if Alexander would object to conveying a message to Roman. She dressed up because Roman was simply ill, like last time, and therefore did not attend receptions. Alexander happily agreed to fulfill the girl's request, so she gave him her message. After that, the girl came to the garden every day and waited for her friend until nightfall. However, it was all in vain because Roman never showed up. Even on the last night before she left, Lucy was unable to talk to the guy. This whole situation made the girl cry all night long. She didn't believe that her friendship would end because of such a petty quarrel. She didn't understand where that Roman, whom she knew just recently, had disappeared to. On the last night, Lucy hoped that Roman would show up, so she cried more than ever when he didn't come. The next day came. The girl collected all her things and loaded them into the carriage. She then said goodbye to her parents and younger brother before leaving. Already in the carriage, Lucy was thinking that she no longer needed her friend Roman, but she was going to continue living even after such a separation. The girl promised herself that she would make many friends and try to forget Baskerville as quickly as possible. She remembered Sue, whom she only managed to talk to for the first time at her last appointment. The girl no longer wanted to make the same mistakes and decided to completely change. Now her name was Lucy Hutman. She could start over with a clean slate and forget about the whole past. After some time, the girl arrived at her new provincial academy. It was too deserted because she arrived too early. Lucy was so worried that she wanted to run somewhere safe. So far, the girl was just walking through the corridors and classrooms of her new school. She was worried about making a lot of new friends this year. Suddenly, the silence was broken, and a clear voice was heard behind Lucy. The first thing the girl noticed were the huge light rabbit ears. Lucy noticed a plate with various fruits and vegetables laid out on it. The stranger approached our heroine from behind with every step. A rabbit in a pink dress approached Lucy and invited her to eat a carrot. The girl asked why the sheep was sitting alone and muttering something to itself. Lucy looked at her interlocutor again and realized that she could not take her eyes off her. She was especially interested in the cute, light, huge ears of this rabbit. From the tips of her ears to the tips of her toes, this entire girl was just incredibly cute. Lucy accepted the carrot with pleasure and promised that she would eat it soon. The rabbit was very pleased with this and said that her name was Emma. Lucy responded by introducing herself with the surname Hutman, which she inherited from her great-grandmother. Emma asked permission to touch the sheep's horns because they seemed unusual to her. It was the first time she'd seen such twisted horns, which turned out to be softer than she thought. Lucy said that these horns feel the same way as a fingernail or toenail. After that, the rabbit asked how our heroine was caring for them. Her friend uses cuticle cream because it makes her horns look better. The rabbit was a little embarrassed because Lucy had such an expression on her face as if she was surprised. The girl turned out to be right because Lucy really couldn't understand one simple thing. She wondered why everyone at the school acted as if she didn't have any horns on her head. The girl was glad about this, and a little later asked to touch the ears and the rabbit in return. At the same time, another new classmate approached her and asked her to treat him to a carrot. Lucy looked around and saw that a variety of animals had gathered in this school. And at this time, the rabbit handed a piece of fresh carrot to her new friend. The guy extended his hand forward and took the carrot and introduced himself as Khalid. But he asked his classmates to just call him Kali if they wanted. The rabbit looked at the guy and asked if he was a retriever. Lucy would be very surprised that such questions could be asked so easily. However, Khalid was in no hurry to answer the questions and invited the girls to guess for themselves. The rabbit assumed that the guy was a peacock because he was very smart. Lucy asked why their new friend didn't spit the carrot back out. The girl was completely sure that the guy would get burns if he ate her. Khalid was very surprised when he suddenly heard these words from her, but instead of answering, he just raised his right hand to his mouth and licked his fingers. He was surprised that Lucy figured out that he was a snake so quickly. The young man even thought that they had crossed paths before, but the girl said that she had come from afar. But the rabbit was angry because the guy meanly put something in his mouth that he couldn't even eat. Khalid noticed that with such an expression, the girl discriminates against snakes. He noticed that if he himself had said that the rabbit had 2 big ears, she would not have liked it. He turned out to be right, because the girl immediately ran up to him and grabbed him by the clothes. The guy immediately apologized and said that he had a moment of mental confusion. The rabbit advised the snake to use his brain when he was about to say something. It is not known how much longer the guys would argue, but at that moment, the door to their class fell off. It turned out to be a teacher who entered the classroom before the start of the lesson. The rabbit sat behind her and looked at the snake with a contemptuous look, wanting him to be a good boy. Lucy was surprised that a raccoon would teach their lessons. Only after this did the girl notice something strange that distinguished her new class from the previous ones. Unlike the previous private school, this one had a lot of different animals. There was even a guy who was a deer and wore huge, beautiful antlers on his head. This allowed Lucy to understand that she was not the only one at this school. For the first time in a long time, the girl was able to smile calmly and not think about sad moments. She looked out the window and thought that in this school, she was just a piece of an unusual landscape. Outside the window, there was beautiful sunny weather, which added to our heroine's good mood. At lunch at the school cafeteria, the girl also encountered something new for herself. There was a lot of vegetarian food on the tables at this academy. At that moment, Emma came into the buffet and invited her new classmate to have lunch together. The girl said that Lucy simply had to try local apples. Sheep. Thought that without Roman, she would not be able to make friends with anyone else. But then it turned out that she found several people to communicate with on the very first day. Khalid also joined them at lunch, having already put some food on his plate. Lucy was glad to have a new addition to the company, but the rabbit was clearly annoyed by it. She pointed to the vegetable and fruit plate in her hands and asked if the snake was going to eat that too. Khalid answered that he is not going to eat, but would like to sit with the guys. He was already sick of the rabbit's accusations, so the guy assumed that she was a racist. These words sobered up the girl a little, and she agreed that we could have lunch together. Emma knew that there was a prestigious school nearby just for snakes, to which the guy replied that he came here at the behest of his parents, who did not want to waste money on going to school. The rabbit was annoyed that the guy constantly used words like discrimination and prejudice. Lucy tried not to enter into their agreement, just looked around. The girl saw a small portion of her new acquaintance and thought that he would not be able to get enough of her. She remembered her friend Sue Kane, who ate huge portions of meat. The snake noticed a slight confusion on the side of his new acquaintance. He put his finger to his lips and asked not to say anything about it. Lucy decided that the guy might have his own reasons for doing this. She answered questions from her friends, who were very surprised that the girl came from the capital. Lucy explained this by saying that she wanted to move to where her great-grandmother once lived. After this answer, silence reigned at the table. No one uttered a sound. After that, the conversation flowed as it usually does between completely normal classmates. Khalid wanted to sit with them, but the rabbit did not understand why the guy could not spend time with his friends. The snake noticed that he didn't have any friends at this school yet, and asked why Emma didn't like him so much. The girl replied that it was not that she didn't like him, but something else. Khalid could not simply accept such an answer and asked the girl to stop hating him. While they were arguing, Lucy decided to herself that she needed to make at least one friend with horns on her head. Quiet everyday life began as a student at a provincial school for creatures. The girl took the advice of her new friend and bought herself a cream for the horns. She began applying it to them every morning and evening, which improved their appearance. The smell was so wonderful that everyone in the school started turning to look at Lucy. The girl did not immediately notice that this delicious aroma was constantly leaving her, but the rabbit immediately smelled it as soon as she entered the audience. She approached Lucy and was clearly very excited about something. She asked the girl to listen to her and take the words correctly. Emma noticed that Lucy now had a very tasty smell that made her want to bite and eat her. The sheep did not at all expect such a reaction from another herbivore. The girl took her friend's words seriously and decided to double-check everything in the evening. The next day, she brought her cream to school and showed it to the rabbit. It turned out that the cream was for those who are predators, and Lucy did not notice it. She said it was her first time buying something like this, so she didn't know much about it. It was a little dangerous because all day she smelled like food for predators. Even Khalid agreed with his friend this time and advised her to read the label more carefully. Lucy agreed and said that she would replace this cream with one that is unscented. The girl was upset because she thought she was very stupid. However, friends noticed that everything was fine. Classmates would forget about it in a few days. After that, the rabbit attacked the snake because it was funny for him in such a situation. Khalid noted that he himself must check all the existing perfumes at home and throw out the unnecessary ones. Rabbit couldn't understand why the guy would do all this. After all, the main thing is that he himself does not feel anything like that. But instead, the guy just asked how the girl felt about the smell of flower-scented perfume. In fact, Khalid did not even know that flowers are divided into edible and inedible. He was more amazed that Lucy herself found out about this only now. The girl didn't know what to answer to this, so she just stood there silently. She later added that she didn't want that kind of attention anyway. The rabbit reminded her that soon everyone would forget about what happened, so there was nothing to worry about. Lucy knew that smells were perceived differently depending on one's bloodline, because she was always just trying to live up to another side of herself. Homework and exams alternated between each other, so the semester flew by. Lucy regularly attended all classes and took excellent notes. She came to the school because she wanted to mingle with the crowd like this. But for some reason, she had the feeling that her heart was about to break into pieces. The girl was interested in how her friend Roman Baskerville was doing there. The flow of thoughts was interrupted by the rabbit, who asked the girl how she was going to celebrate the holidays. Lucy replied that she plans to stay here because her house is too far from school. Hearing this, the rabbit invited Lucy to her home for the winter holidays. The snake overheard their conversation and said that he also wanted to join the trip. He looked the rabbit straight in the eyes and asked if she would take him with her. At first, the girl was very surprised by this proposal from the guy. Khalid already spent time with them all the time, so she didn't understand what else he needed. And the guy still couldn't understand why the girl didn't love him so much. Lucy at that time was immersed in her thoughts and constantly thought about Roman. She wondered if she suddenly had a fight with Emma or Khalid, would her heart hurt in the same way? The girl did not understand why Roman had never written anything in all this time. She even began to doubt that they had ever been friends at all. A few days later, rumors spread around the school that a new student had transferred to them. Everyone was surprised that the guy transferred almost before the holidays and not at the beginning of the school year. They said that he came from the capital and his family was very rich. We assumed that he had either done something wrong or was an illegitimate child who was hated in the family. After these words, Lucy suddenly had a thought, but the girl couldn't believe it. She abruptly jumped up from her chair and walked out of the classroom. The girl didn't understand why she was going somewhere if she decided that she wouldn't do anything. Even if it was Roman, she promised herself that she would forget about him. Lucy didn't know if they could make peace, so she didn't want to hope for anything. She didn't understand why Roman would come here. It's unlikely that he would have followed her. Besides, Lucy never told the guy where she was going. Suddenly, the girl heard someone calling her name, so she stopped in the middle of the corridor. Lucy realized that this voice was very familiar to her and belonged to her friend. The girl began to look around, and tears appeared in her eyes. Looked to the side, the girl's eyes came across a figure familiar to her. The guy was beautifully dressed in a suit and wore a soft green scarf around his neck. He stood in the middle of the corridor and looked at his friend, asking her why she froze. Roman extended his hand forward and asked the girl to come closer to him. He himself moved closer to Lucy to hug him as before. The girl shuddered from such an unexpected request and from the fact that it really turned out to be Roman. The guy said that he really missed his best friend very much. He looked straight into the girl's eyes and asked if she missed him too. The guy bent down and grabbed the girl's fragile body into a tight embrace. Lucy was so amazed by what was happening that she froze and did nothing. She missed her friend very much and dreamed of seeing him as quickly as possible. She even thought that maybe her friend had not received her letter. The girl did not understand what was happening, because just recently she was very angry with him. However, Lucy pulled herself together and returned her friend's hug. Roman once again said that the girl could not even imagine how much he missed her. But Lucy noticed something strange in his behavior now. Roman, unlike in the past, no longer waved his tail from side to side. Lucy realized that this guy was different from the Roman she knew. She asked the guy to let her go and asked why he had never contacted her all this time. This question took Roman by surprise. The guy was surprised and remained silent in response. He then let go of his girlfriend and looked straight into her light blue eyes. The guy replied that he had just been very busy lately. Lucy was amazed that that was all her friend could say. The wolf admitted that he looked at the school plan, but didn't understand anything, so he asked his friend to take him to the right office. Lucy didn't know if she should comply with this request, so she thought for a few seconds. After which the girl finally made up her mind and asked to show her his card. She looked at the piece of paper and immediately knew where they would need to go next. Lucy walked her friend to his apartment and then walked back to class. There, a snake and a rabbit were already waiting for her, who did not understand what had happened to the girl. Lucy tried to justify herself by saying that she simply had an urgent matter. She couldn't get out of her head why Roman behaved this way with her. Lucy and the rabbit continued to chat pleasantly and discuss the past days. Suddenly, the snake began to react strangely and called our heroine by name. He apologized in advance for the unpleasant news that he was going to tell the girl. The guy said that a very strange smell was coming from the girl. Zmay was very embarrassed, but still asked the girl to take off some clothes. The rabbit considered him a vile pervert and called him angrily. Lucy didn't understand why the guy suddenly changed so much and began to behave differently. Then Khalid suggested changing into at least a training suit. Lucy and the rabbit could no longer listen to these stories, so they decided to change clothes. The sheep walked away for a while and completely took off her old uniform and folded it flat. She herself wore a dark purple suit, which emphasized the color of her hair. Emma still didn't understand what had happened, why her friend had to change clothes. Lucy carefully folded her dress and put her things next to it. She grabbed the stack of old dress and brought it to her nose. The rabbit tried to find at least some smell, but it was still not there. She even suggested that the guy go to the hospital and check his sense of smell. However, Khalid was not going to let the rabbit keep her friend's smelly clothes. He grabbed the things and carried them as far away from the girls as possible. The guy put the dress down, then abruptly slammed it shut. Only after that did he tell the girl not to dare touch these clothes ever again. The rabbit thought that her friend had lost his mind, which is why he was acting so strangely. Khalid asked Lucy if she touched something strange when she went out. The girl replied that she didn't seem to touch anything unusual. Khalid noticed that it didn't feel like normal touching and asked if Lucy was seeing someone. The girl only replied that she had not met anyone during her short escape. The snake noticed that if the girl had not changed her clothes, she would not have been able to attend classes normally. Lucy immediately touched her tender horns, which she had been lubricating with cream for several days. And Khalid and Emma continued to argue, as they did every day. I still couldn't understand what this sudden story with the smell was. The guy was clearly uncomfortable talking about this topic, so he tried to move the conversation to something else. Emma and Lucy were not very happy with this situation, and at this time, Khalid took advantage of the advice, sat down at the table, and grabbed his head with his hands. He suggested telling girls that they shouldn't do something, but he didn't explain it in any way. And Lucy again found herself in a situation where two friends were quarreling next to her. The girl was already used to this, so she didn't pay so much attention to their swearing. Instead, she remembered the meeting with Roman and did not understand why she lied. Several days have passed since that incident, and rumors about Roman have already spread throughout the school. People were discussing the fact that the guy hugged someone very tightly in the corridor on the very first day. Everyone around was sure that the guy had arrived at this school to see his girlfriend. They considered this a very romantic act and were on the guy's side. Lucy listened to all these conversations and couldn't help but worry about them. Khalid noticed that the girl was especially absent-minded today. He asked if the girl was really doing well, because she didn't look very good. The guy asked me to at least tell him what was happening to her. Lucy turned to the window and said that nothing unusual had happened. The girl was confused because she didn't know why Roman came to school. The sheep did not understand why Roman was so cold towards her. Lucy hoped that the guy would at least contact her with roses after their quarrel. The girl was very lost in her thoughts and did not notice the end of the lesson. Khalid suggested that his friend take a walk and get some air outside. Lucy really needed to come to her senses a little, so she agreed. The guys went outside, where the snake once again noticed that the girl was behaving strangely. Lucy wondered if she really still had that strange smell. She was very interested in what exactly that smell was. Khalid immediately imagined a huge gray wolf, which he associated with this scent. The guy said the smell was just a little dangerous, but didn't go into detail. Lucy didn't really like her new friend's vague answer. She saw that the guy seemed to want to tell her something, but did not dare. He said to be sure to turn to him for help if someone offends her. At this moment, a rabbit just ran up to them and said that it was time for lunch. The guys realized that they should head to the dining room if they wanted to have time to eat something. For lunch, they had a standard portion of vegetables and fruits with various drinks. Lucy had no appetite at all, and her head was a complete mess because of Roman. The girl was sitting in the dining room when suddenly the guy appeared there, accompanied by other people. Lucy immediately noticed him and began to follow the guy with her eyes. It seemed to her that now he began to look even more mature than before. The snake looked at Roman and asked if this was the famous Baskerville. Emma noticed that the guy was very handsome, and it was impossible not to pay attention to him. After this, the rabbit and the snake began to argue about how the wolf seemed to them from the outside. Lucy, as usual, did not participate in the conversation, but simply looked at Roman. Just at that moment, the wolf turned away from his conversation with his friends and looked at Lucy. The girl noticed that her gazes crossed and looked away first. However, Roman was not going to let her go just like that this time. He said a few words to his friend and headed towards our friend's table. Emma was horrified because the guy was looking at her and walking towards them. Khalid was not happy that the girl was scared, so he turned to the wolf. However, the guys did not at all expect that Baskerville would approach them and call Lucy's name. The girl also didn't expect the guy to address her so openly. Roman, meanwhile, asked the girl for permission to have lunch together after all this time. Lucy immediately realized that her quiet school life was over. The girl had already noticed these curious glances directed at her. Roman did not notice anything around him and asked permission to join the group of friends at the table. Lucy didn't understand why the guy started acting this way, even though he was cold at first. The rabbit noticed how strangely her new friend reacted to this wolf. The girl immediately guessed that the guys knew each other and were very close. She jumped up from her seat and began to lift the kite from its place. Emma pretended that they urgently needed to talk about something in private. Roman watched the two leave with his eyes and then turned to the people. He realized that these guys were very close to his girlfriend at the new school. After they left, the wolf calmly sat down in the vacant seat at the table. Roman looked at Lucy and asked if she was friends with that snake. The guy was worried that it might be dangerous because Khalid was too big. He thought that the snake could become king among the herbivores who went to this school. Roman said that recently he has been following a vegan diet, so he will eat vegetables and fruits. Lucy also noticed that he had grown 25 centimeters taller since their last meeting. Previously, they had not had the opportunity to talk, so Roman asked his friend how she was doing. Then he added that everything in his life had been far from good lately. Lucy was very surprised by this answer, because she did not expect this from Roman at all. However, the guy did not want to develop this topic further, so he asked about the sheep's friends. Then he again mentioned how bad his life was without his girlfriend and how much he missed her. This infuriated Lucy, because he was the one who did not want to meet her and avoided her. Roman admitted that he read the letter to the girl, which is why he came here. And he also found this scarf in the envelope as a message, so now he wears it all the time. The guy was afraid that without the scarf, the girl wouldn't recognize him, because he had changed a lot lately. He sincerely believed that the girl wanted to forget him as quickly as possible, so she might not remember. Lucy looked at her friend and did not understand why he was talking such nonsense. The guy was sure that the girl had left him and gone to this provincial school. The sheep was unhappy that the guy allowed himself to talk to her in such a tone. Before leaving, she told him that it would only be a change in the physical distance between them. However, this was not true, because the girl wanted to get rid of all signs of her past life. She wanted to throw away everything, including her last name, and live calmly and safely without any teachings. Lucy still couldn't understand why her friend was even saying all this. She herself understood that even if she decided to throw everyone out, Roman would be an exception. In addition, right before leaving, Roman admitted that he liked someone. The girl noticed that it was Baskerville who had not written to her for several months. She still remembered that last evening and the number of tears she cried. "I wanted to tell you that I spent every evening in the park, but I didn't have time." Roman looked straight into the girl's eyes and said that he missed her. This conversation even brought real tears to Lucy's eyes, and the guy kept repeating how much he missed his girlfriend. He understood that the girl was puzzled by his arrival at this particular school. Roman admitted that he did it because Lucy Hutman was there. For some reason, the guy believed that when they met, they should pretend to be strangers to each other. Both did not want to appear to each other as some kind of continuous reminder of the past. The guy noticed that if the girl wants to continue hiding, then she can do so. But he himself, one way or another, really missed Lucy very much, so he came here to see her. The girl, as usual in such situations, simply sat on a chair and did not understand what to do next. Roman got up from the table and headed towards the exit, and Lucy looked once again at the retreating silhouette of a wolf in the distance. The guy turned away, but Lucy managed to think that she had caused him a lot of pain. The girl still saw how the guy was going through the conversation. Lucy was unpleasant that the guy this time thought that it was her fault. Just at this moment, her friends came from a rabbit of snakes. The guys immediately noticed that the girl's eyes were wet, as if she had just cried. The snake immediately guessed that the wolf Baskerville had come to visit her. She said that she accidentally ran into him in the school hallway. Khalid looked straight into our heroine's eyes, trying to find the right option. The girl also attacked him with her gaze, but still could not bear so much. Several more days passed, mostly discussing Roman and his girlfriend. Lucy still didn't understand how to behave with the snake. The guy asked if the wolf was the sheep's lover, but Lucy answered in the negative. The girl said that the wolf was just a friend, although they had not hugged often before. Khalid told the girl that friends of the opposite sex usually don't do that. In addition, he noticed that you do not necessarily interact with him if they do not meet. Before I could tell the most important thing, Emma entered the room. Khalid and Lucy were immediately forced to interrupt their dialogue. The snake came to his senses first and waved friendly to the girl, beckoning her to come to him. Emma came closer, and they again began to argue about all sorts of topics, like real friends. Lucy was glad that the girl had appeared, because in this case, the snake would leave her behind. Only now did the sheep realize that Roman did not consider their relationship to be friendly at all. Lucy decided for herself that she must resolve this misunderstanding as soon as possible. Time flew by quickly, and real autumn had already arrived outside the window. The girl decided for herself that today she must sort out all the misunderstandings. From the very morning, she was as decisive as possible about her actions. Loudly clicking her heels, Lucy headed to the next class. The girl just walked in and immediately from the doorway demanded to show her where Roman Baskerville was. The guy was standing right in the center of the room, talking to some other girl. He noticed that Lucy came to him and wanted to talk about something very important. This time, the girl decided not to hold back and say everything loudly and clearly, without taking into account the opinions of others. The first thing she noticed was that Roman missed her as much as she missed him, although the girl was sure that the guy was even more bored than she was. People in the class, of course, heard their conversation and already began to whisper. Roman looked down at his girlfriend and was silent for a while. Lucy saw that she was not getting any answer, so she began to worry herself. The girl looked away and invited her friend to talk a little about it. Roman still couldn't answer anything and just stood silently and looked at the girl. He then said that he already had an appointment right now, so he was a little busy. Lucy did not expect this turn of events at all, so she was confused. Roman seemed very adamant in his decisions and actions. Then the girl next to him suddenly woke up and said that it was she who invited him to dinner. She even invited Lucy to join them if she wanted. Of course, the girl did not do this and politely refused the invitation. After which Roman said goodbye to his girlfriend and said that they would see each other next time. Lucy was confused because she was sure that the guy moved to this school because of her. Roman himself recently told her that he is not offended by her at all. And now he simply turns around and once again leaves the conversation. Lucy thought they had grown far enough apart now. She spends time with her friends. Roman spends time with his friends. Late evening in a large provincial town, many people's windows are still burning. Lucy was drinking warm tea from a huge mug when she noticed something unusual. There was a small paper note tied to her bag that wasn't there before. It was said that Roman asked to give him a tour of the school at night. Lucy was surprised that Roman wrote a note for her. At the appointed time and day, the girl appeared in front of the closed park. Lucy couldn't miss the meeting, so she arrived on time and immediately started looking for her friend Roman. And at that time, the guy stood calmly in front of the entrance gate and waited for her. First of all, he smiled sweetly and thanked the girl for coming to him. The guy took a couple of steps forward and slowly extended his hand to the girl's face. He gently stroked her cheek and realized that the girl was cold. Immediately after this, the guy rushed to hug his friend to help her warm up. Thus they stood for several minutes in complete silence. Lucy didn't understand at all why the guy suddenly began to behave this way if he had recently been cold. The girl realized that their hug was a little too long for the usual friendly greeting. She remembered the snake's words about the smell and asked if the wolf could smell it. However, from Roman's surprised face, the girl guessed that he did not understand what he was talking about. Roman wanted to figure it out and asked Lucy again what smell she was talking about. The girl said that yesterday she was told that a strange smell was coming from her. Roman was angry that one of her friends would say such a thing. Lucy promised to introduce Roman to all her friends, but she was still worried about the smell. The girl talked a little about how wonderful her new friends Emma and Khalid are. Roman reached forward and gently took Lucy's right wrist. She sniffed the girl's hand and said that she only heard a pleasant aroma. The guy decided that the snake simply decided to play a trick on the girl and deceived her. And the guy also noticed that if he were in the snake's place, he wouldn't joke with the girl like that. What worried Lucy at that moment was that her friend's tail was motionless. I didn't understand why this was happening, because before he had never found a place for himself. The sheep removed her hand from the wolf's hands and added that the snake was not such a bad person. Even if he likes to joke, he will never try to offend anyone. The guys walked leisurely around the park and talked about various abstract topics. Lucy noticed that her friend looked like a completely different person, which interested him. The girl admitted that after a while the guy began to seem a little stranger to her. However, Roman noticed that he was still the same as before. Lucy looked at her friend under the night sky and couldn't take her eyes off him. She wondered why he asked to give him a tour of the school at night. Roman generally continued to talk about the fact that Khalid is a bad guy. Roman asked how the sheep managed to make friends with this wolf. Lucy replied that she was just lucky because both Emma and Khalid spoke to her first. The sheep asked Roman how his day was, why he didn't ask that girl to show him the school. The guy replied that he just got bored with her, and that's why he didn't do it. Lucy is glad that her best friend decided to ask her for the excursion. However, the girl was still fiddling with her fingers because of her excitement. This touched Roman a little, who watched the girl closely. He covered her hands with his palm and noticed that the sheep was all cold. He promised to walk the girl home when she left. This proposal surprised Lucy very much, but she was pleased with his concern. Today was a very cloudless night, and there was a full moon in the night sky. Roman said that in fact, a lot happened to him during Lucy's absence. The girl was ready to hear this story in full, so at first she was scared. Lucy understood that the guy wanted to tell her something, and the excursion was just an excuse. The girl called him a very wonderful friend. It was clear from Roman's face that this word again caused him a lot of pain. With an expression of some despair, the guy said that they were really best friends. Then Lucy asked why her friend had not contacted her all this time. Roman said that his older brother Alexander got married and they had a modest wedding. The guy himself wanted to arrange a small ceremony before his bride left to study abroad. In fact, Roman wanted to tell his friend about this for a long time. He wanted to do this for a very long time, but something kept stopping him. Roman seemed to be mentally determined to jump from a huge cliff. He looked so scared. He admitted that he really hated his girlfriend for a while, but the guy quickly added that he hated her for his own reasons, without her fault. He explained that he understood his own feelings too late. He asked if Lucy knew the reason why he came here. Roman remembered very well that the girl missed him very much. She was already gradually guessing what the whole conversation between them was leading to. Roman promised that he would say what he was going to say on the day of their last meeting. He looked straight into Lucy's eyes and said that he really loved her very much. Roman said he came to finish the confession he was going to make that day. He understood that he had done a lot of bad things towards his girlfriend. He was angry and tormented, although she had not done anything wrong and was not to blame for not being able to reciprocate. Now the wolf understood that Lucy perceived him simply as a friend. Roman added that he needed time to put all his thoughts in order. If he had loaded up with his girlfriend then, he would not have been able to let her go later. Roman was sure that he would ask the girl not to leave him and not to go anywhere. That's why he came to apologize, because Lucy shouldn't lose her precious friend. Now everything was okay, because the wolf no longer had such thoughts when he offended the girl. Now he too only saw her as a friend and not as his love interest. The wolf admitted that he could now become a true friend for the girl. He looked into her eyes and asked if she missed him. He also asked if he could still call himself her close friend. Lucy replied that she completely agreed with everything he just told her. The wolf felt as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and the guy hugged his girlfriend. Lucy hoped that nothing else would change between them. After an explanation, the wolf volunteered to accompany the girl to the door of her house, which was very close to the school. At the very end of the walk, the wolf turned to the girl again and gently touched her face. Baskerville thanked his friend for coming out to him at such a late hour. In Lucy's eyes, the wolf looked as if it had broken the bonds that held it. The girl was glad that they were able to talk so well and clarify all the points. Already at home, she thought that they still could not be in a real relationship. Love doesn't last as long as friendship. Lucy wasn't in love with Roman. The girl now understood that Roman loved her from the very beginning, not as a friend. Lucy understood that from now on, everything between them would be as before. The long night ended, and a clear sunny day arrived, which was sorely missed. A strange girl approached Lucy at school and asked if she had spoken to Baskerville. The sheep was clearly not a little embarrassed by such attention from strangers. The girl already wanted to ask our heroine for something, but she refused in time. She explained that she and Roman are not as close as this raccoon thinks. It seemed that the stranger was satisfied with this answer. She wished her luck and left. Lucy was only thinking about how her life would have turned out if Roman had confessed earlier. The girl still couldn't get rid of the thoughts in her head, and the question of whether they could be together. Even now, the sheep noticed that she had torn all her origami paper due to stress. She should have been glad that Roman no longer loved her, but her heart was hurting. Now the wolf could communicate not only with her, but also with other guys and girls too. So autumn passed unnoticed, and real winter came with its frosts and ice. Emma approached her school friend and invited her to spend the night together. The girl was in such a good mood that she even allowed Khalid to come. Only after a moment did the rabbit realize that her friend looked very depressed. The girl didn't understand why Lucy didn't listen to her, and Khalid looked only at Lucy. After a couple of moments, the sheep seemed to come out of a trance and asked her friend to repeat the question. But if everything was more or less clear with the rabbit, it was still unclear why the snake was angry. A few minutes later, all three were already sitting at the table and drinking tea. After the rabbit ran away somewhere, Khalid and Lucy decided to spend time alone. Khalid didn't understand if the new student Roman Baskerville and Lucy were just friends. He asked to tell him everything, even if they were hiding something from the public eye. Lucy understood from her friend's tone alone that something was wrong with him. The girl denied any connection with Roman, but the snake did not want to calm down. Khalid thought for a long time and doubted whether he should tell the girl about this, but still decided. He began to smell Lucy's wolf scent immediately after Baskerville transferred to them. Lucy didn't feel it herself, so she couldn't understand that it was the wolf smell coming from her that Khalid smelled. In addition, each time Khalid felt the smell on the girl stronger and stronger. It seemed as if Roman had marked his territory. Lucy had absolutely no idea that her friend could behave this way towards her. At that moment, Emma the rabbit came into the kitchen and said that she had a surprise. The snake was as amazed as Lucy, but she advised him not to draw the wrong conclusions. And now Emma brought the only person who would be a good idea to avoid in the entire school. Lucy sat at her desk and continued to hum various melodies. It seemed to the girl that her heart might skip a couple of beats from excitement. Right in front of her, with a plate of vegetables in his hands, stood Roman Baskerville himself. The guy smiled happily and asked if he could join them. In turn, Lucy could not believe that he was specifically marking her. Emma saw the confusion on her friends' faces and misinterpreted it. The girl ran up to the snake and invited him to have dinner today, just the two of them. The guy did not want to leave his girlfriend with the wolf, but the rabbit was very persistent in her beliefs. Emma quickly persuaded the snake to leave the room and leave Roman and Lucy alone. Roman followed the retreating couple almost until the very end. Lucy was sorry that the guys left, because she would like to introduce them. Roman had no choice but to join Lucy and chat. The guy even suggested that the two were dating each other. He remembered how the snake looked at the rabbit with a dreamy look. But Lucy noticed that these two were just good friends at school, to which Roman noted that the guys looked good together and could very well date. However, he also noted that the guys are in the same relationship as they were before. Lucy realized that at such moments, Roman could be a very straightforward guy. I decided to clarify something from my friend firsthand. She tried to tell the guy about what had been making her worry the last few days. Other predators clearly noticed that Roman's scent is on the girl. The guy did not expect such a turn of events at all, so he suddenly grabbed the girl's hand. He sniffed and said that he felt absolutely nothing. Roman raised the girl's hand directly to his lips and inhaled her scent. He didn't know where else this smell could come from. Lucy was generally very embarrassed by this movement, so she simply agreed with the man's arguments. Roman remembered the girl's words that she and Khalid were good friends. Near the school, almost everything is grass, so the guy could feel selfish because of the quantity. Apparently, the wolf considered him a cold and calculating maniac. But Lucy asked him not to do anything, but after this walk, her hands did not freeze. Roman began to worry that Lucy might be bored here. The girl wanted to go further, after which Roman expressed a desire to follow her example. He pretended that he agreed to this only because the guys constantly spend time together. Even now they were arguing very nicely, but they did it as if they were flirting. Suddenly, a voice rang out in the heroine's head, saying that she would be leaving alone. The guy smiled slyly and asked if the girl had a day off on the eve of the day of the robe. The guy still didn't have any friends or relatives here, so sometimes we want him to spend time with familiar faces. Roman was very happy that he would finally be able to make these desserts this year. Lucy told her old friend's proposal to Emma. The girl said that you have to agree, at least in order to get into a good office. The rabbit wanted to bring the sheep and the wolf together, because then Lucy could become the bride of Baskerville. In addition, their meetings always end. Even among the people there is a proverb. Just now I heard that you first need to make an impression in order to start dating, then get married. Moreover, Khalid began to say something about the curses of the Baskervilles. In any case, they spoke for both sides. Now the question is different, what Lucy decides for herself. The rabbit repeated that they had known each other for a long time, and the guy transferred here especially for her sake. In her eyes, it was very romantic, and he really likes Lucy herself. Plus, the girl noticed that the guy smiles brighter when he's next to them. The rabbit's heart nearly jumped out of her chest when the wolf invited her to have dinner together for the first time. These words caused dissatisfaction on the face of the serpent, who literally said the opposite. He carefully moved the rabbit aside and said that she was too slow. With this being the case, he didn't understand how Emma could even call herself smart. The girl was upset because of this and thought that something was wrong with her. Khalid asked if Lucy had conveyed to Roman what he said about the smell. The sheep hesitated at first and didn't know what to answer, so she stood silently. Then she said that Roman was not sure where the smell was coming from. This answer quite infuriated the snake, who understood that this was complete nonsense. Khalid believed that this guy was truly dangerous, and Lucy was now in danger because he hesitated. Emma didn't understand why the guys didn't like each other so much. She even suggested that they were fighting for territory. The words that the snake was jealous of the wolf finally drove him home. After that, he began to quarrel with Emma with a vengeance. It didn't matter anyway, because the rabbit and the lamb agreed to spend the day of the chasuble together. The serpent was embarrassed that he was invited to such a homely family event. He was glad to be invited and asked the rabbit what gifts he should bring. The girl reminded them that they had no food for predators at home, so Khalid promised to bring medicine for his stomach to make it easier for him to eat only vegetables. Lucy looked at her friends and suddenly realized that they gave off a special atmosphere. The snake pretended that it could eat something that it could not even swallow, as was the case with the carrot. Then the girl remembered Roman, who could eat grass and fruits to survive on a desert island. It suddenly dawned on the girl that at that time he was talking about how they could live happily together. It only now dawned on her that Baskerville was trying to be kind to her. Out of frustration and missed opportunities, Lucy clenched her hands into fists. The girl would prefer not to think about it at all, and if she knew how much she would regret and yearn for the time spent together. Roman, through a note, asked the girl to show him the city because he had recently arrived here, but he had many friends for this. A few days later, the public school began its holidays. Lucy could finally stop waking up very early and get as much sleep as she wanted. But this was not destined to come true, because someone began to throw a stone at the window. From this constant sound, our heroine woke up and opened her eyes. The girl wanted to see what was happening on her balcony, so she got up and headed towards the sound. She barely managed to return another stone that flew right past her head. Roman stood below, apologizing for almost hitting the girl. There were no messages from her, so Baskerville came to her himself directly to the house. Roman said that he had been waiting for the girl for a long time, but she was sleeping, and therefore did not hear. The guy noticed that it was still early, but offered to go down and take a walk together if the girl didn't mind. Lucy noticed that the guy was still wearing her green scarf. The girl noticed that the guy still wasn't wagging his tail. He probably wasn't having so much fun spending time with her. The guy said that he has no friends at all, since he just moved to a new school. Although Lucy Yi decided to communicate less with him, she was flattered by his attention. After some time, the girl had completely changed into street clothes and went out. Her best friend Roman Baskerville was waiting for her on the threshold. The guy opened the carriage door and helped the girl get inside, after which they drove off. Roman looked at his friend and said with a smile that he would definitely buy her something. Lucy noticed that her friend was still wearing her scarf. The guy noticed that he really liked it, because it was her gift to him before leaving. Roman also shared that he explored the city center a little in advance before the walk. The kids from school told him about many interesting places during their studies. The guy added that the girls from his class tell him almost everything. They are very kind. Suddenly, the carriage stopped, and Lucy looked out the window to see where they were. Lucy immediately replied that she was not hungry and had no intention of going anywhere. Roman remembered very well how the girl, literally recently, was ready to eat everything. So he opened the carriage again, gave the girl his hand, and bowed to the coachman in farewell. Lucy was forced to admit that he behaved very gallantly indeed. At first, the guys just stood opposite each other and looked at each other with strange eyes. Lucy was both embarrassed and radiating some kind of self-confidence. The girl said that all this is only because the guy is now taller than her. The wolf was worried about what still seemed unfamiliar to her. Lucy shook her head from side to side and said that this was all wrong. The wolf was incredibly happy that the girl was not afraid and remembered. After that, he opened the door again, and the couple entered a small, cozy coffee shop. The guys took the menu, selected several drinks and desserts from there, and gave it back. At some point, Roman extended his hand forward and asked Lucy to give him her hand too. The girl sat calmly and drank tea, and did not understand why she needed to do this. It seemed to Roman that Lucy was cold, so he wanted to warm her up in this way. Lucy heard that sheep stay away from each other in winter, but in summer they huddle closer to each other. The guy asked why the girl didn't go home during these holidays and if she wanted to stay away from him. The sheep blamed everything on the fact that the holidays were too short, and she needed to prepare for the next semester. Roman was happy about this, but Lucy understood that this was not the main reason. She herself did not understand why she stayed. While the guys were talking, they had already been brought a ready-made stack of delicious pancakes, topped with maple syrup and berries. Lucy was drinking tea, and Roman volunteered to cut pancakes for her, so the atmosphere was reminiscent of a date. The wolf promised to accompany the girl everywhere if she wanted to, of course. He himself planned to begin by adapting to the local environment. For example, tomorrow he was invited home by a classmate. Lucy was very curious about this classmate, but she had no right to ask this. The next day, and then the day after that, there were no messages from Roman. Lucy Hutman hated that everyone wanted to date Roman Baskerville. She couldn't think about anything like that at all because she was jealous of him. Lucy admitted to herself that she wanted Roman to be just for her. The girl definitely wanted to get rid of this terrible feeling. She wanted to open her soul to someone, like Emma, but she would not be able to understand the feelings she was experiencing. There was another option, Khalid, who may have known what those feelings were. He was also a predator, so Lucy was more inclined to talk to him. Finally, after a few days, the holiday in honor of Reese's Day arrived. On the street, everything was completely decorated for various types of fairs and performances by artists. Of course, Lucy went to celebrate this holiday in the company of her friend Roman. and now the young man offered to win a toy for her in the next competition. Here it was necessary to shoot down the desired toy using a special weapon. Roman was quite accurate, so he knocked down 2 toys with the first shot. Lucy was pleasantly impressed that her friend turned out to be a pretty athletic guy. They decided to take a wolf toy as a prize, and Roman immediately gave it to Lucy. The girl was a little embarrassed. She thought that she should have gone with Emma. Roman noticed that the girl was very pale, so he asked if she was okay. To this, the sheep replied that she was just a little dizzy. The next second, I noticed the guy extending his huge hand towards her. The young man touched the girl's forehead and immediately understood what was going on. She developed a fever, so Roman suggested leaving immediately and going home. Already sitting in the carriage, Lucy apologized for ruining her friend's visit to the holiday. The guy wasn't particularly worried, because initially he wasn't really looking forward to this day. These words hurt Lucy a little, because now her friend was no longer looking forward to the moment when he could spend time with her. These thoughts made her feel uneasy. The girl clasped her hands in her lap. After some time, the coachman drove up to Lucy's house and stopped in front of the front door. Roman accompanied his friend and asked her to be sure to let him know if she suddenly got worse. In parting, he carefully placed his hand on her head and checked her temperature again. After this walk, Lucy finally decided that it would be better for her to stay away from Roman. At home, she placed the toy he had given her in the most prominent place in the center of the closet. And then the girl threw herself on the bed and buried her face in the sheet. Jealousy itself was very tiresome, but Lucy became more and more bored. When she is next to Roman, she is overcome by warm thoughts, because Roman has not done anything wrong, and this meant that she herself did the wrong thing by running away from his feelings once. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Someone wanted to go inside. The girl tried to stop crying and went to open the door for her visitor. Lucy did not at all expect that her classmate Khalid would be standing on the threshold of her house. The guy apologized for the late visit and asked the girl for help, which she could not refuse him. Initially, the friend went to visit Emma, but then ran away. Emma was also supposed to visit Lucy soon. The snake looked into the sheep's eyes and said that he had confessed his feelings to Emma. Lucy was very surprised by this fact, because she had not at all counted on such a turn of events. Khalid was very upset because he had done this and was now worried. Now all he asked Lucy was to say that he was a good person in every sense. It was not difficult, so Lucy immediately said syllable by syllable that Khalid is a good person. He was very pleased to hear this, but the guy asked to say this not to him, but to Emma. The rabbit herself knew this very well, but the guy hoped that the sheep would help them connect. He sincerely admitted that he wanted to date the rabbit, because he liked her very much. Lucy asked her friend to calm down, and said that she understood his feelings. The guy admitted that he liked the girl literally at first sight, but she turned out to be not very smart in love affairs. And he especially liked her cute, soft white ears, which he dreams of touching. At the beginning, he had no idea that he would fall head over heels in love with a girl, but it happened. In any case, he is a very good person, so he promised to be very caring towards the rabbit. However, the girl herself was very cowardly, which is why he needed the help of their mutual friend. Lucy was flattered that for someone she had become someone they could rely on. In exchange for help, the snake promised to do whatever the girl wanted. The guy added that she could ask him for anything, even consider him her slave. After this, Lucy finally agreed and asked how she could help her friend. Together they came up with a plan of action and were only worried that it might backfire. As the snake predicted, after some time Emma also visited Lucy. A friend asked the girl why she came to her in the middle of the night. It was clear from her that something scared her very much and made her move. The rabbit did not know what to do, because Khalid suddenly made a confession to her. Lucy pretended that she didn't understand what they were talking about. She just sat and listened carefully to the story. Emma talked about how they just sat and played various games. The guy suddenly suggested going for a walk, despite the fact that the cold is his main illness. He himself was shaking from the cold, but he still tried to look after the girl and even pulled his coat over her. Why did he suddenly say that he wanted to date her, which sounded like complete nonsense? Lucy laughed and said that even she could see how the guy was breathing unevenly towards the rabbit. Emma was worried that he was a snake. They were completely different from head to toe. The girl was also worried that until that moment the three of them had been just great friends. Lucy saw that the girl was not saying something and was sitting embarrassed and silent opposite her. The sheep remembered that on the very first day, Roman also suggested that they were a couple. He then said that the two would make a great couple because they get along well. Only now did the girl understand what he meant by these words then. The rabbit at this time reached the point that she wanted to scold the guy for confessing without warning. Although Lucy knew very well that the guy had repeatedly dropped hints to the rabbit, she simply did not notice them. And she also didn't understand how you could fall in love at first sight, without even knowing what kind of person she was. Khalid said that he liked the rabbit for no reason, but she believed that he fell in love with the fantasies he created. Lucy believed that whether it was ears or horns, their tail, people could fall in love with even one such little thing. Someone could love her for her beautiful and soft horns on her head, which distinguished her from the rest. Just like Roman's tail was special to her because he reacted happily to her every time. Emma's rabbit ears had the same meaning for the snake, so Lucy was interested in what the girl answered him. After all, they got along well all this time. Didn't she really develop any feelings for him? Emma didn't quite understand what she was talking about, but decided to listen. Lucy assumed that the girl was afraid that their friendship would suffer because of the situation. It was a little strange sometimes, but the girl has a pretty cute face. The sheep continued to think about the rabbit and the snake and reflected on their common future. However, suddenly Roman and their future together appeared in her fantasies. The girl shook her head from side to side to quickly drive away these visions. Meanwhile, Emma said that it wasn't that she didn't like Khalid. The thing was, she had never thought of him in that way. Emma asked Lucy herself the same question, but the girl had never thought about the guy in this way. This is why the rabbit was so scared to decide anything, because she simply never thought about it. She didn't understand how such an idiot like her could please a cheerful, smart snake. To be completely honest, sometimes he even seemed a little cute to her, but they were just friends. Although she knew that the guy was a little more sensitive to her than to other people, Lucy realized that now Emma, just like she herself in the past, is tossing between friendship and love. The rabbit thought that he was behaving this way simply because they were good friends, but it turned out that this was not so, and yet she was the last one who wanted to believe that it was about their friendship. Both girls at this stage of their lives were still learning the difference between friendship and love. Emma didn't know what to do if she suddenly felt awkward communicating with the guy. She wanted the three of them to continue to be friends. Lucy calmed the girl down and said that everything would be okay with them. Emma hoped that the girl was right, and at the same time asked if she herself had found herself in such a situation. The question was extremely important, so the girl almost gave away her secret, but still caught herself in time and said that she had never been in such a situation. Emma was also worried that if they started dating, it was unknown how long it would last. The girl dreamed of turning back time so that the incident that happened today would simply disappear. Lucy noticed that if the rabbit did not answer the guy, then their relationship would only become more awkward. Emma thought about stopping communicating with the guy altogether and being friends with just the two of them. Then Lucy asked the rabbit to close her eyes and imagine that she was holding Khalid's hand. Emma didn't even understand how she could get goosebumps because of some kind of fantasy. Then the girl advised her friend to imagine that they were kissing, but neither of them had such experience. In this case, Lucy advised to imagine that the snakes were kissing any other girl. Emma noticed that she really didn't like this, but it was unlikely to matter much to her. In this case, Lucy resorted to an extreme measure and asked to imagine herself in the girl's place. It was extremely difficult, but Emma tried to imagine Khalid kissing Lucy. There was silence in the room for several minutes as the girls imagined this situation. Finally, Emma admitted that although she loved Lucy, she did not like this situation. This meant that the girl had some feelings for him, so the sheep advised the guys to try to meet. Emma the bunny will probably be sad if she turns down her boyfriend and Khalid starts dating someone else. By the time the girl realizes how sad she is from the loss, it will be too late. Lucy regretted that no one had said such words to her when she herself had experienced something similar. Perhaps everything would have turned out differently now if she had listened to Roman to the end that day. Emma was worried that because of them the trio would break up, but Lucy promised that everything would be okay. She advised the girl to start by going on a few dates with a guy. After all, she didn't intend to spend her whole life alone and not meet anyone. Lucy had never been in a romantic relationship herself, so she didn't know if things would change between them. But she wanted everyone to have a friend who could help them accept the situation. Lucy accompanied Emma to the exit and promised that next time she would definitely listen to her too. The girl said goodbye and the rabbit went to her home, and the sheep returned to her home. The girl entered her small room and headed straight to her favorite bed. There she fell face first into the pillow and began to think about what she had missed in life. Just as she advised the rabbit to do this, the sheep itself closed its eyes and imagined kissing Roman. This picture made her feel very pleased and sad at the same time. Tears welled up in her eyes. A few days later, Khalid came to the heroine's house and asked if she needed any help. He was very happy and grateful to the girl for helping him reunite with his beloved. He really liked calling Emma his lover, so he repeated it over and over again. The guy even apologized for being too cheerful and laughing too much. In any case, he just wanted his girlfriend to know about it first, and also promised to keep his word. Lucy remembered that he promised to do whatever she wanted if the girl helped him. He said that yesterday because the sheep is his friend, and at the same time the friend of the one he loves. Lucy has helped him in matters of the heart, so she can ask him for any favor whenever she wants. The girl promised to definitely think about it, but for now the guys decided to go their separate ways. The sheep was very happy that she could help her friends pair up. However, after her friend left, the girl realized that although she was surrounded by those she loved, she still felt lonely. Although perhaps it was more a feeling of solitude than loneliness. Lucy still didn't feel very well, so she decided not to go out and rest until the end of the holidays. The girl lay down on the bed and decided to take a quiet nap in order to recover quickly. In any case, even if she needs someone now, she still cannot replace that one with someone else. She didn't really know what she was looking for when she came here, or, on the contrary, she wanted to throw something away. Now the girl's whole body ached. She thought that it would have been better if she had not met Roman. She was sick, so she fell asleep quite quickly and did not hear anything that was happening around her. That's why she missed someone throwing something at her window and breaking the glass. The next morning, the girl woke up and realized that she had caught a cold. She looked at her chest of drawers and was surprised that the wolf was standing right in the center, although she didn't seem to put him there. Then the girl saw that her bedroom window was broken. Because of the wind, it was very cold in her room, so it was necessary to quickly resolve the issue with the window. The girl even thought that she needed to return home, then she would not catch a cold. Lucy made herself some tea to warm up after sleeping with the window open. As soon as she relaxed for a minute, the girl also began to imagine how she was kissing Roman again. Lucy didn't understand what was happening to her lately and what she should do next. To begin with, the girl decided to deal with the window, which she had already covered with rags. She clearly remembered closing the window, so she didn't understand why it cracked. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through her left leg as she moved around the room. Lucy looked down and saw that it was a shard of glass being driven into her leg. The girl carefully leaned down and tried to carefully take out a piece of glass. It was still very painful, and her foot started bleeding. The first thing she needs to do is stop the bleeding and wrap her wound with a bandage. However, no matter how much Lucy tried to do this, the blood still did not stop flowing. The girl had already begun to fall into despair due to the fact that the bleeding did not stop. She was afraid that the worst had happened and that the shrapnel had hit some major artery. Due to blood loss and stress, Lucy began to feel dizzy and needed to urgently call someone for help. Luckily, Emma was nearby and ran to help her friend. First, she just needs to provide first aid, so the rabbit asked the girl to close her eyes and be patient. Her hands were shaking with fear when Emma the rabbit unwound the old bandage, which was all soaked in blood. After this, the girl washed the wound with clean water and removed small fragments. It was very painful, but Lucy stood strong and endured it all. Rabbit suggested that the wound might be too deep and suggested going to the hospital. Usually they go there with serious cases, but Emma believed that this was exactly what her friend needed. She carefully wrapped her leg in a fresh bandage and literally begged Lucy to go to the hospital with her. The sheep said that she woke up in the morning and saw that the window had broken, and then she accidentally cut herself on it. The rabbit did not understand how the window could break on its own. Someone was clearly to blame for this. She even yelled at her friend and told her to be more careful. Lucy decided to change the subject and asked how her date with Khalid went. The rabbit began her story by saying that yesterday they met early in the morning. However, at first she did not understand at all how to behave with him. It was very strange for her to see him as a boyfriend and not as a friend. Therefore, first of all, the girl suggested that her boyfriend try to kiss. After the kiss, they both did not feel such enormous awkwardness from the first date. Lucy sat simply in shock at the rapid development of her friends' relationships. The rabbit saw her friend's reaction and began to worry that everything had gone strange. Lucy got goosebumps from such speed, and the girls understood why the guy smiled so much yesterday. To reassure her friend, she compared their kiss to trying something in a store before buying it. Such an action was very rational, and in any case, the guys had already done this. Lucy could tell from the rabbit's face that they both liked this kiss. Emma didn't understand how to explain it, but it was enough for her that she just liked it. The girl looked at her friend and asked why she had such a lost look. She stroked the sheep on the cheek and promised that their friendship would not change. They would communicate as before. After that, Lucy calmed down and they continued to chat about their last date. Suddenly, the calm conversation between two friends was interrupted by a knock on the door from the street. The girls didn't call anyone, so they were wondering who came at that time. Lucy had a wounded leg, so the rabbit volunteered to go and check who came there. The girl came back with a very happy smile on her face and invited the sheep to guess the guest. Lucy wasn't expecting anyone at all, so she couldn't even guess the name of the visitor. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be her best friend since the old times, Roman Baskerville. The girl did not expect to meet him at all, so at first she even forgot about her wound and jumped out of her chair. However, the leg immediately made itself known, forcing the girl to sink back into the seat. The rabbit explained that the sheep was injured when it stepped on a piece of broken glass from the window. She also asked the guy how he knew where Lucy lived. Roman looked first at the broken window, then lowered his gaze to his bandaged leg and suddenly became very sad. The rabbit didn't understand what was going on here and why the guys were behaving this way. Roman looked into his girlfriend's eyes and said that he was very sorry. Emma saw that they were about to have a serious conversation, so she decided to leave early and give the guys a chance to talk. She thought that the couple was in the same situation as herself, so she decided to help her friend. The girl winked and then ran away to give the lovers the opportunity to be alone. Lucy didn't want to be abandoned and left alone with Roman. She looked at the young wolf and asked why he came here in the first place. The guy said he could still smell blood from his leg, so he asked if he could look at the wound. After the girl's permission, he carefully picked her up and carried her towards the exit. Lucy tried to convince him that she would go to the hospital herself if necessary. However, the guy believed that the girl was talking complete nonsense and was not going to leave her. He carefully helped the girl get into the carriage and ordered the coachman to head towards the hospital. Lucy thought that the guy worried too much about trifles. However, Roman admitted that it was he who broke that window in her room. It seemed to him that the girl was sick, so when he passed by, he lightly tossed a stone. He hoped in this way to call the girl to the balcony, like last time. However, he miscalculated his strength and accidentally broke it, but was going to tell him everything. Yesterday he came to Lucy's house because he was worried about her and her health. In this case, Lucy decided to accept payment for the broken window and for the hospital bills too. Roman even advised me to tell my parents about him, but the girl said that everything happened by accident. She wasn't mad at her friend at all, because nothing serious had happened. Roman promised to make amends and fully compensate for all losses, but he was still upset that the girl called Emma instead of him when she got hurt. It seemed to Lucy that the guy was the first to begin to treat her indifferently. The girl was worried about going out without shoes and without makeup, but Roman noticed that even in this form she looked beautiful. After these words, Lucy asked if he said this to all his friends. After some time, the carriage stopped in front of the hospital, and the guy extended his hand to help the girl down. Lucy noticed that she could walk on her own, so she refused help. He insisted that she should not step on her foot, but if she did not want to accept help, he would do something differently. The guy simply picked up Lucy in his arms, like a little feather. He asked the girl to stop being stubborn and just rely on him this time. But she was worried that others might see them in such a strange position. Roman didn't understand why the girl would make such scenes, because the more she behaved like this, the more attention they would attract. At the hospital, the girl's wound was cleaned, small fragments were removed, and the edges were treated. Lucy was even a little tired of Roman acting like a mother hen and worrying too much. The cut on the girl's leg was small, so it wouldn't be very noticeable even if there was a scar in the future. Roman blamed himself for everything, because besides this, something else could have happened. Lucy said that he did not need to blame himself for anything, because only he, Emma, and herself knew about this incident. Even so, Roman still considered it wrong and felt guilty. The guy invited the girl to carry her home and knelt down so that she could climb on his back. The girl was embarrassed to do this and wanted to go herself, but she was still not allowed to do this. Lucy didn't understand why the guy wouldn't treat her so well if he didn't even have feelings for her. Still, she has many options, so the girl carefully climbed onto his back and allowed herself to be carried. At home, she said that she wanted to rest a little and promised to call Emma if she suddenly felt pain. Regarding the broken glass, they decided that Lucy would replace it first and then pay the bill. It wasn't that big of a deal, so Lucy thanked Roman for his help today. The guy was worried, because if it weren't for him, nothing would have happened at all. Anyone would have done the same in his place. Lucy didn't want to take his words too seriously, so she simply agreed with him. The girl wished the guy to take care of himself and turned around to go home. She thanked the guy, even though he was the culprit of her incident. After that, the guys said goodbye, and Lucy went inside the building, closing the door behind her. The sheep believed that Roman should not think that it was all his fault. She sat on the bed and realized that this was the worst vacation of her life. Lucy received a letter from home in which her family asked about her life at the new school. The girl told the family that everything was fine with her, and the holidays were very short. That is why she did not come in winter, but promised to come in summer. Quite a lot of time has passed, so the girl's wound is slowly healing. Next, the girl decided to read a letter from her friend Roman. The guy wished her a happy new year and asked how her leg was doing. The new year did not mean anything special for the girl, and 2 weeks of winter holidays passed. Roman returned a little earlier than the start of classes and immediately went to his friend to check on her health. Lucy reported that almost everything has healed, and now it doesn't even hurt her to walk. Roman looked very upset and could not forgive himself for such an offense. Every now and then he looked down at his girlfriend's legs and tried to find some differences in them. Roman took Lucy by the hand and said that he would take the girl home in the evening. If he is late, then the carriage will be waiting there in any case. He promised to do this until his leg was completely healed. That is why Lucy and Roman rode to and from school together in a carriage every day. The girl sat opposite her friend and felt a little awkward. She decided they needed to talk about something, so she talked about Emma and Khalid's relationship. The wolf was very surprised by this, although he initially guessed that something was happening between them. The guy liked Emma from the very beginning of school, and Lucy became friends with them a little later. This news made Roman think about something, although he reacted positively. Everyone at school was already discussing the fact that Lucy arrives every day in Baskerville's carriage. However, the guys themselves preferred to pretend that nothing strange was happening. They entered school together, and then said goodbye and went to their classes. There was a particularly pleasant atmosphere in Lucy's class because of the couple in love. Khalid doesn't care about the opinions of others, because now they are officially dating. But Emma felt a little awkward because of the extra attention, and even when they were fighting, the guys still looked like they valued each other very much. Lucy looked at her friends and could not believe that they could behave like children. The guys were very happy to see their friend after the long holidays. Khalid was still worried about Roman and was worried because Lucy was riding in the carriage with him. He didn't see them leave together, but his scent was clearly imprinted on all her clothes. Emma asked to help her calm the snake so that he would behave a little more restrained. The girl reported that her leg has almost healed, but still hurts a little. Khalid has only just learned that the girl was injured when she stepped on a piece of glass at home. Emma hoped that her friend's wound would heal by the beginning of the winter ceremony. The girl also thought that she needed to somehow punish Roman for his negligence and causing harm. The guys did not have time to discuss this, because the teacher entered the class and announced the beginning of the lesson. Lucy thought about using her injury as an excuse, but she was not sure that Roman would want to dance with her and not with someone else. Soon a school event began, which amazed the sheep with its scale. The tables were literally bursting with various desserts and all kinds of tea. At this school event, everyone could talk, eat sweets, dance, or play all night long. Lucy thought that if there was no awkwardness between her and Roman, then she could dance with him. Lately, this thought has eclipsed all the girls' thoughts and distracted her from other matters. Sheep thought it would be wonderful if she could dance with Roman. There were many chances for them to dance together at various events. For example, when Roman was her only friend, or when he was in love with her. During all these moments, the guys could hold hands and dance freely with each other. Even if it were possible to turn back time, Lucy was sure that she would dare to dance with the guy. She believed that she could fall in love with everyone, because despite their different origins, they liked each other. Emma looked at her friend and asked why she was folding origami from pages. Lucy herself didn't notice how she began to steal sheets of paper from the notebook and put together various shapes. Emma thought that her friend was doing this simply because she was bored in this lesson. But Lucy understood that this was something more, because she had never done origami before. Khalid also noticed his friend's confusion and realized that something was wrong. Lucy noticed his look and thought that she could ask him for advice later. For now, the guy distracted his rabbit girlfriend and gave the sheep the opportunity to be alone. The best way to distract herself now was to focus on her own feelings. That's why the snake covered the rabbit's hand with his own and squeezed it gently. I didn't understand why people couldn't live on their own and felt lonely when they were alone. The boys went to play cricket, and Lucy said that if she got in the way, they shouldn't tell her about it directly. But Khalid noticed that they have separate time that they spend alone, and the girl is trying to distance herself from them. In any case, he wanted to talk to her about one small detail. The snake accurately noticed that the girl's leg had already completely healed, but she still continued to pretend that something hurt there. Lucy said she wanted to use this as an excuse to skip the winter ceremony and asked not to tell Emma. The guy didn't understand this behavior because anyone would agree to go to the event with her. And then the guy added that the girl was clearly thinking about going there with Baskerville. Lucy was very surprised that the guy called her by her real name, Leperdier. Khalid admitted that their family has connections with the press, so he simply guessed everything. When he first appeared at school, Roman behaved as if he knew the girl, and Lucy herself seemed to be among herbivores for the first time. For example, this was clearly visible after the incident with cuticle cream on the horns. and among those whom Roman might have known, there was a man known from birth, our age, a sheep. Lucy reminded that the press wanted to print about it, but almost went bankrupt. The girl admitted that she just wanted to live a little normal life before going to college. But Khalid immediately realized that it was not just that, Baskerville was involved. The snake did not understand why Roman transferred to them. He clearly followed the girl. Lucy said that before they moved, they had a big fight over something stupid, and Roman came because he wanted to make peace with her. The guy understood that all this sounded like complete nonsense and did not believe a single word of the wolf. He added that if it wasn't a breakup, then the guy doesn't have to behave like that. The wolf constantly circles around the girl without the consent of the person he is not even dating. Lucy didn't understand what he was talking about, so she asked for clarification. Just as Khalid wanted to talk about this in more detail, the ball immediately flew at them. Thanks to his instincts, the young man noticed the approach of the object at the last moment. He managed to react and put his hand up, but the blow was still quite strong. The guy even swore and asked what kind of person did it. The culprit of the event immediately hurried to them with an apology for his crookedness. It turned out to be Roman, who immediately asked if the guys were okay. Some hostility arose between the guys, so they silently stood opposite each other and watched. Roman once again apologized for his awkwardness, then took the ball and left to continue playing. Khalid still didn't understand what kind of relationship the guys were in. If they were just friends, then Roman's behavior was not normal, and something had to be done about it. The girl was afraid that Roman would find out that her leg had actually healed a long time ago. It was necessary to urgently take some action, so Lucy decided that tomorrow she would go to school alone. I decided to discuss this moment in the evening in the carriage, on the way home from school. Lucy plucked up her courage and told her friend that it might be a problem to walk on her own. Roman noted that if the girl overexerts herself while her leg is healing, the wound will not heal properly. After this, there was an awkward silence in the carriage that lasted several minutes. Previously, the girl told Roman that they would always be friends. So now he wondered if she had said the same thing to Emma and Khalid. The guy admitted that he was lonely. He hadn't gone out for a long time, so he should start making new friends. He asked Lucy if she was okay with this arrangement. The girl only replied that the more friends, the better. At school, strangers kept asking the girl about who she would go with to the winter ceremony. Lucy told everyone that due to her leg injury, she would have to miss it. Emma was most upset that her friend wouldn't go to the ceremony to have fun. She realized that the girl was deliberately spreading rumors that she would not go to the ceremony. The rabbit even guessed that her friend's leg had actually healed a long time ago. Although the doctor said that she had a muscle injury that would take a long time to heal and make itself felt periodically, the rabbit thought that by the end of the week, Roman could ask the girl to go with him to the ceremony. However, after the last conversation, they no longer communicated. Roman, using his leg injury as an excuse, takes the girl home but does not say a word. Lucy sincerely believed that it would be better if they just quarreled. Then they could at least make up. Lucy entered the classroom and heard the girls there discussing Baskerville. When they saw her, they suddenly fell silent and decided to go talk elsewhere. The girl had long come to terms with this behavior of her classmates, so she didn't even pay attention to them. Lucy approached the rabbit and said that she and Roman were just friends. She still didn't want to go, so as not to see him dancing with someone else, so she preferred to relax at home. Khalid looked at the girl's behavior and didn't like it very much. The guy didn't even really want to talk to his girlfriend lately, seeing her in such a state. That evening, on the way home in the carriage, Roman asked if Lucy wanted to tell him something, but the girl only asked if the guy was tired of taking her home all the time. Roman was clearly expecting another question, so he just silently looked at his friend. After that, he simply turned to the window and they didn't talk again that evening. A few days later, the day of the ceremony came. The rabbit persuaded her friend to go at least for company. But Lucy admitted that she doesn't really like such events. And she asked her friends not to wait for themselves to be persuaded, and citing a sore leg, went home. On the day of the ceremony, Roman still took his girlfriend home in the evening after school. He still couldn't believe that the girl really wouldn't go to the ceremony. But Lucy said that the guy knows very well how much she doesn't like parties. In fact, she liked them after meeting Roman. But the girl decided not to tell him about it. For the first time in her life, she was looking forward to a gala evening and hoped to receive an invitation. But instead, she wished him a good day. The next morning, after the winter ceremony was clear, it was on this day that Lucy told Roman not to come pick her up again. She explained that her leg had long since healed and there was no longer any need to ride a carriage. Lucy admitted that she was heartbroken, but she didn't want to feel jealous anymore. She informed Roman about her leg and apologized for speaking so late. The guy wanted to take her one last time, but Lucy said that she had some business in town. The girl admitted to herself that she liked Roman, so now she didn't want to give him any reasons. She believed that they had already missed their time, and now they needed to keep their distance. Then one day the guy will be able to tighten her heart. Now she understood why he himself cut off communication for several months. Things weren't going well at school either. Lucy told her friends that she was going on a diet. She said she wasn't feeling well and invited Emma to have lunch with her boyfriend. In fact, the girl decided to simply avoid the place where she could meet Roman. She planned to come to and leave school early for a while. She hoped that after her feelings for Roman passed, they could be friends again. The girl hoped that soon everything would return to normal. In the meantime, she tried to walk more and spend time outdoors. Unfortunately, this diet and lifestyle clearly did not benefit the young girl. Khalid has noticed that Lucy has been avoiding Baskerville lately. He not only noticed some signs of this, but his intuition told him so. Lucy said that she didn't see him often anyway. It's just that friends get closer and further apart from time to time. To put it bluntly, the girl considered herself an uninteresting person. However, the guy understood perfectly well that this was some kind of love quarrel between them. He noticed that if Lucy continued in the same spirit, Roman's heart would crumble into pieces. The guy believed that after what Roman did at the winter ceremony, Lucy just needed to pull him out of her life. The girl listened carefully to the guy and did not understand what he was talking about. He said that even the slow-witted Emma already understood everything and offered to introduce her friend to her friends. Lucy still continued to deny that they had broken up because they weren't dating. The snake still could not understand the relationship between Roman and Lucy. The girl turned away and noted in a sad voice that she had been rejected. She said that she liked the wolf, but he didn't like her anymore. That is why the girl believed that she was rejected before anything had time to start. She asked not to call Roman a scumbag because she was in love with him. The girl herself did not notice how tears rolled from her eyes at these words. Lucy was sitting in class and suddenly started crying in front of everyone. Khalid also didn't understand why his friend suddenly started crying and tried to calm her down. Khalid helped his friend go outside and get some fresh air. The guy sat the girl down on a bench and he went to get water for her. A couple of minutes later, the young snake returned with 2 mugs full of cool water. The only thing Lucy asked was not to tell the rabbit to Emma. Khalid immediately knew that something had happened between the girl and Roman, so he thought of a love quarrel. But it turned out that he did not understand the whole situation at all, so he asked me to tell him. Khalid said that he was really interested to know about everything that happened between them. Lucy smiled and said that it was actually a very long and boring story. However, she still told everything from their first meeting last summer. Lucy told her friend what happened between her and Roman last year. The story turned out to be quite long and a little ornate, but the guy was able to figure it out. After the girl finished her story, she sat silently for several minutes. The snake believed that their relationship was very confusing and illogical. He could not believe that omissions between people could lead to such a state. The girl still didn't like that her beloved boyfriend was being insulted. But Khalid noticed that now this was not the most important thing in this story. In any case, it was not easy for Lucy now because she was in love with Roman. Because he didn't like her anymore and she had developed feelings for him. That is why her heart ached and ached so hellishly. Khalid noticed that one wise saying always accompanied him through life. He sincerely believed that if someone behaves like an idiot, then they need to come up with a reason for this. But now the most important thing was that the girl wanted to move on in life. And for this, she just needed to confess her feelings to Roman. The whole problem was that the guy never rejected her personally. The girl did not want to do this, but Khalid insisted that she needed to check everything personally. He advised the girl to have some courage and talk to the guy directly. He promised that he would help the girl with her relationship, since she helped him with his. I had to admit it, because you can only honestly worry when you are truly turned away. Therefore, he advised Lucy to invite Roman to a conversation and tell him everything honestly. The girl did just that, agreeing to talk with her friend in the evening. Roman arrived on time, as they agreed. He did not look very cheerful. She didn't look very good due to her diet and constant stress. The girl was shaking very much with fear, but still decided to speak out. She had been told all her life that she should have a lion's heart, so the girl hoped that she had inherited it from her ancestors. I tried to start the same phrase several times, but I kept stuttering. In the end, the girl had enough strength to tell Roman that he was her first unrequited love. This is what Khalid advised her to do, to repay Roman with the same coin as him. He said to talk about everything in the past tense, as Roman himself confessed to her. The guy advised the girl to confess the past tense, and then add that she had already stopped experiencing these feelings. He ordered to take this as a task, to open up completely and feel relief. And after this conversation, he asked to contact him. That's why Lucy did what she did. She talked about her feelings in the past tense. The girl decided that since this was the end, she could be completely honest. Lucy said that Roman was her first and only friend because he knew what she really was like. He was very dear to her. At first, she thought it was just friendship. But then I realized that everything had grown into love. But it was too late. When their communication suddenly ended, every day seemed like hell to her. That's why she was jealous of the people who were next to Roman all this time. She apologized to the guy and said that she didn't want this to continue. The girl hoped that now they could be friends again, but she didn't have time to finish. Roman suddenly rushed forward and grabbed her shoulders. The girl did not expect such a turn of events at all, so she did not know how to react. The guy held Lucy by the shoulders, was shaking all over, and just constantly asked why she decided to tell him this now. Lucy noticed that even Roman's tail began to move and began to shake all the way as if from fear. The guy looked at the girl and asked why she stopped liking him. He suggested that perhaps he stopped liking her because of the ceremony. Lucy didn't understand at all what was happening now, what all this talk was all about. Roman thought that he stopped liking her because he broke a window or said stupid words. He even asked if Lucy might like someone else now. He was amazed that a girl could just stop loving him. The guy was in despair and shouted that he had made a mistake and forgave him to forgive him. He looked Lucy in the eyes and asked if he could start liking her like before again. Roman begged the girl to say something to him and not just stand there silently. The sheep did not at all expect such a reaction from her confession, so she did not know what else to do. The guy continued to shake his whole body and lowered his head onto the girl's shoulder. He suddenly started crying and asked why she stopped loving him. Lucy didn't understand why this guy suddenly started crying on her shoulder. The guy added that he had behaved disgustingly in recent days, but promised to explain everything. And that's why the guys first went into the house and decided to drink some water to calm down. Lucy even offered to hug the toy version of the wolf if it would help him. The guy took the stuffed animal and happily hugged him with his huge arms. Roman asked the girl at what point she began to like him and why she stopped. To begin with, the girl asked him to stop crying so that they could talk normally. Roman really tried to stop crying, but this hysteria was much stronger than him. He just squeezed the stuffed wolf and tried to stop his tears. The guy thought that the girl liked him even less when he was in this state. Lucy decided not to torment the young man for a long time and said that she actually liked him. Hearing these words, Roman abruptly stopped crying and turned to the girl. The girl also added that she still likes him. She just wants to move on, and it's not so easy to let go of feelings. The girl was glad that she was able to clear up this misunderstanding between them, after which she looked at her friend and asked if he liked her. Roman immediately started nodding his head and said that he had liked her all along. Lucy stroked the guy's cheek and saw that his tail began to swing from side to side again with happiness. The girl asked the guy to stop crying and tell her everything from the very beginning. Now she knew for sure that friends liked each other. The wolf tried to calm down and squeezed the plush toy tighter in his hands. Now the guys had to decide what to do next with this information. The guy still looked upset that he had to deceive the girl. Lucy turned away for a minute and thought, staring into space. Then the girl turned to the young man and asked if they were dating now. Roman immediately threw his toy and now turned completely to his girlfriend. The young man gently took her hand in his and squeezed it lightly. They had to make an even more serious confession than had happened before. Roman looked straight into Lucy's eyes and said that he wanted to marry her. The desire to marry a girl did not come to him completely spontaneously. At this time, at Baskerville Castle, the older brothers received a letter from Roman. The boy asked why they ordered him to win a game that was so good to lose. Harold didn't immediately understand what was going on, so he had to explain to his older brother. This meant that the guys were going to meet, which would be a good outcome for the family. Last year in May, when Roman and Lucy were separated, there was a scandal at home. Alexander ordered his younger brother to pull himself together and stop being hysterical. There was a gun lying on the floor that had obviously been fired recently. Alexander asked if the middle brother really shot his younger brother. Harold beat Roman because he was planning to commit suicide. The boy lay on the floor and only said that his life no longer had meaning. The middle brother said that the younger brother tried to kill himself right in front of him. The elder looked down at him and immediately realized that his heart had been broken. The middle one didn't understand what had happened so badly that he was whining so much. Alexander noticed that Lucy would not understand his feelings if the guy died. This was clearly one of the worst-case scenarios. The elder was a great expert in love affairs, so he suggested coming up with a plan. He ordered his younger brother to imagine how the girl lived her whole life without him. If he dies, Lucy will lose her only friend and will feel guilty for the rest of her life. These words brought some sense to the younger brother. He even stopped crying. The guy did not believe that there would be another person who would love the girl as much as he did. As soon as Roman imagined how Lucy would get to some scoundrel, like a hyena, he immediately flew into a rage. The older brother only added fuel to the fire and painted a worse picture for the young girl. Roman could no longer listen to these stories and rolled on the floor, covering his ears. Even Harold thought that Alexander spoke two cruel words. The elder believed that they should put everything in its place so that the guy would not do the same again. Roman lay on the floor and thought only that there was no point in living if his feelings were not accepted. The middle and older brothers looked at their youngest and did not believe that he was their own. They couldn't stand his whining anymore, so they decided to tie the guy up with a vine for the wolves. Thanks to its characteristics, Roman will not be able to break it and escape. Then the guys began to come up with a further plan of action so that their brother would not go crazy. Alexander was confident that Lucy would reciprocate Roman's feelings. They knew that their younger brother had run away recently, and now he was simply not himself. The guys decided to take care of Roman until he comes to his senses. The guys dried him with cold towels and gave him soothing infusions. Along the way, they tried to force the younger one to tell what happened. However, Roman did not want to open his mouth and tell them anything. Alexander knew perfectly well that Lucy told the guy that he was only a friend to her. Roman couldn't understand how his older brother could take his place when he had everything. However, he understood what the younger one was thinking about and said that he too did not get everything with a snap of his fingers. Alexander said that if Roman really wants to get Lucy, then he should not show other people that he likes her. In fact, this was explained by the fact that people do not like it when someone is very interested in them. According to his older brother, it was very similar to playing cards, so they could teach him how to win. In love and the card game, the main thing was not to show what you want, because your opponent will not give you the right card if he knows your plans. Lucy would hardly have accepted the feelings that the guy secretly cultivated in himself. She behaved this way because his feelings were unrequited. The girl was scared. Roman wasn't sure what happened at that moment. He just got angry and ran away. The guy was worried that he could ruin everything once and for all. He knew that Lucy wanted to live on her own and could move away from him. The guy thought that she wanted to get rid of him as much as she wanted to get rid of her last name. However, so far she has not said anything like that to him personally. Lucy had to leave for another city, and the guy did not want to be separated from her. Roman wanted to immediately return and talk to the girl, but Alexander forbade him to do this. He reminded that if a guy wants to get what he wants, he needs to learn to be patient. Now the younger brother was too excited. He needed to get some sleep. Under the guise of an antipyretic, Alexander fed his younger brother some kind of sleeping pill. The elder already understood which side the family lawyer would side with if the younger decided to sue him. Alexander wished Roman good night, and the young wolf's mind began to grow cloudy. Roman's last thought that day was that he had acted stupidly and left Lucy furious. Alexander himself experienced something similar and fought the urge to lock his wife in a birdcage. He thought that their family curse was pure nonsense until he encountered it himself. Alexander was afraid that the girl would run away if she knew about his real thoughts. He did not believe that Lucy, when she learned about these feelings, decided to run away. The girl did not look like the kind who could abandon a friend in trouble or turn away from him so easily. After waking up, Roman said that Lucy was planning to move and go to another school. He did not know the name of the school itself, but he knew that it was located somewhere in the province far from the city. The guy didn't know why she was leaving, especially since it came as a surprise to him. The girl said that she wanted to find herself, but Roman did not believe that this could not be done in their hometown. Even though the younger one told him everything he knew, the older one still had no intention of letting him go anywhere anytime soon. Roman wanted to come back and apologize to the girl, but Alexander said that he needed time. He promised that he would be held responsible if the guys moved away from each other. The younger brother knew this girl for only a year, so his hobby could have harmed himself first. He promised to help Roman if he was able to wait a little. However, a lot of time has passed since then, and the matter has not moved forward. Alexander drank tea and reasoned that Lucy really liked Roman. She just didn't know it herself yet. He advised his brother to make the girl feel the pain of loss, because people begin to value something only when they lose it. It was very similar to hunting, so for starters, the guy was not allowed to communicate with the girl while he was in a rage. It was necessary to make the girl lower her defenses and allow herself to be caught. Only then will the girl no longer dare to leave him after confessing. Roman did not believe that Lucy could love him so much. However, Alexander only smiled, because he was a master in love affairs and understood this thoroughly. The young man entered the room holding a letter from Lucy. Roman immediately rushed to his brother, hoping to read her message. However, if he wants to get a girl, he should put these thoughts aside. He should try harder if the guy wants to marry Lucy and live his whole life with her. Roman decided to follow his older brother's advice and obey him in everything. And the first stage was a complete ban on any contact with each other. That is why Roman personally threw the letter from the girl into the fire and watched it burn to the ground, hoping that this would lead him to victory.